Chapter 217. Trajectory God Power Crystal. Formed from the god of trajectories blood essence crystal. Fusing it can strengthen one's bloodline. Seeing that there were no problems with the game's judgment, Zhou got the blood-colored avatar to absorb the trajectory God Power Crystal. As the black power was refined by the blood-colored avatar, its stats changed again. The speed stat increased to 21 points, and there was an annotation of the word trajectory. The trajectory Holy Temple actually increases speed. It was really a fluke. Zhou was secretly amused. Although he had previously believed that the trajectory Holy Temple corresponded to speed, the situation inside was completely different from what he had imagined. Even Zhou was surprised that the trajectory God Power Crystal could increase speed. Zhou and Li Xian asked Alai many more questions, but he seemed to have forgotten many things. He only remembered that he came from a place called Langya Town and that his father was a sailor. After he graduated from high school, he boarded a ship with his father and encountered a storm at sea. He couldn't remember anything after that. Zhou had some doubts about Alai and planned on taking him out in the future to figure out his origins. However, before that, he had to wait until the Holy Land's trial ended. Zhou originally wanted to head to the other temples to obtain God Power Crystals and raise all 4 of his stats to 21 points. However, when they arrived at the other temples, they realized that they had been completely closed. Clearly, the God Power Crystals had been taken away by others. There are indeed hidden talents in the league. It's only been a few days, but the God Power Crystals have been snatched away. Zhou was somewhat worried for Li Xian. If the Kane infinite body was also snatched away, Li Xian would have no hope. Just as he was pondering over it, he suddenly heard a thunderclap in the sky. The wind and clouds churned as though a hole had collapsed in the sky, forming a huge vortex. Zhou and company involuntarily flew towards the vortex. They could also see figures flying into the sky from all directions of the Holy Land and being sucked into the vortex. Zhou didn't resist the vortex's suction force and allowed himself to fly into it. He even patted Li Xian on the shoulder. There was only one possibility for such a situation to happen. The God Power Crystals of the 6 temples had been snatched away, so it ended early and opened the passageway to leave the Holy Land. However, Li Xian didn't mind. Since I can't obtain it, it means that I'm not fated to have it. It's no big deal, even if I don't have a special physique. I'll rely on my immortal god of combat life, Providence, to forge my own path. You're right. Not having a special physique might not be a bad thing. Zhou had a nagging feeling that the 6 holy temples were a little odd. All right, there's no need to console me. I've suffered many setbacks since I was young. Such a trivial matter isn't enough to make me depressed. Li Xian imagined that Zhou was consoling him. Zhou didn't explain. After all, everyone wanted a special physique. He didn't have any evidence and was just guessing. It was useless to explain. Together with Alai, the trio flew towards the vortex. When they arrived near the vortex, they happened to see Pros being sucked up as well. Pros even glared at Zhou. Zhou, don't celebrate too early. This matter isn't over yet, Pros said as he was sucked into the vortex. Zhou and company were also sucked in. Soon, they returned to the stone altar from before. Zhou originally wanted to take Alai to check their identities, but he realized that many young people hadn't left the altar. Instead, they surrounded it. Their targets were clearly him and Li Xian. What are you guys doing here? Hurry up and make way. Do you want to fight here? Li Xian said with a twitch of his lips. Now that they were out, they could do whatever they wanted in the Holy Land, but they had to be restrained by the League's laws after coming out. Although the 6 families enjoyed special privileges, they didn't have the privilege to openly beat up a representative of the family. Lance, it's him. No one bothered with Li Xian as Hardadef pointed at Zhou and said to Lance, "You're Zhou." Lance looked at Zhou in surprise. "Your name is Lance?" Zhou was also somewhat surprised. Before coming, Jiang Yin had warned him that the only person he needed to be afraid of was a person named Lance. "Were you the one who crippled their primordial energy seas?" Lance asked Zhou. "Yes, but they were the ones who came to find trouble with me first." Zhou originally didn't plan on explaining, but after glancing at Lance, he still explained. Lance nodded. Actually, that's not important. I want to fight you. You can choose the location and time. Because I'm the representative of the family? Zhou knew that Lance cultivated with the goal of defeating Tianzhua. It's not for anyone. It's just because you are Zhou. Apart from Tianzhua, you are the second person I'm interested in. I didn't plan on taking action when they called me over, but since you are Zhou, I'm interested in fighting you, Lance said. But I don't want to fight you. Fighting is very troublesome, Zhou said as he spread out his hands. He wasn't a battle maniac like Feng Qiuyan. He really wasn't interested in fighting without any practical value. If he had the time, Zhou would rather game for a while. Fight me. Regardless of victory or defeat, I'll ensure that you leave Holy City safely. Otherwise, you will still be in trouble. Those fellows won't let you off easily. Compared to fighting me, those fellows will take up more of your gaming time, right? Lance suddenly approached Zhou and whispered into his ear in a voice only he could hear. It looks like I can't reject it. However, I'll be the one to choose the time and place, Zhou said with a shrug. Lance's words were half-truths, but there was one thing he was right about. The fellows from the 6 families definitely wouldn't let the matter rest. Holy City was their best opportunity, so they definitely wouldn't let Zhou leave so easily. Although Zhou didn't expect Lance to really send him away, it was good to stall for time so that Shang could be prepared. Within 2 days. You can choose the time and place, Lance said. Lance, 2 days is too long. John immediately turned anxious. He was afraid that Zhou would take the opportunity to escape. However, Lance only smiled and said, he won't run. Don't worry. There's no need for 2 days. Let's do it tomorrow at noon. I still want to go home early after the fight, Zhou said. All right, where is it? Lance asked. I'll inform you when the time comes. Zhou didn't answer directly. He planned on returning to get Shang to choose the location. With Shang's abilities, he would definitely be able to choose the most suitable place. Chapter 218. In the hotel room, Shang looked at Zhou with an odd expression. That's what happened. Is there a problem? Zhou recounted his experience in the Holy Land. No problem. Don't worry. Leave the rest to me, Shang said without any hesitation. All right, I'll go back and prepare. As Zhou spoke, he prepared to return to his room and absorb the mutated fairy's primordial energy skill crystal. Previously, Zhou couldn't cultivate it due to his stats. Now that his speed had risen to 21, he had met the requirements. He could cultivate it before fighting Lance. Young Master One, you have to be careful of Lance. Although his reputation outside is inferior to John's, those who truly understand the current situation of the 6 families know that Lance is the most terrifying person in this generation of the 6 families, Shang said. I know. Even if Shang didn't say it, Zhou could sense it. He also has a nickname, Voiceless, Shang continued. Why is he called Voiceless? Is the primordial energy art he cultivates related to sound? Zhou asked curiously. Shang said there are all kinds of voices in the world. Every voice has its own unique rhythm and charm. Every life has the right to produce a voice that belongs to them to prove that they are part of this world. It's just that some voices are loud enough, while others are relatively soft. Zhou didn't directly say why Lance's nickname was Voiceless, but he already understood. Voiceless probably meant that when he produced a voice, the entire world would fall silent. There would be no other noise, leaving only his voice. After returning to his room, Zhou took out the mutated fairy's primordial energy skill crystal and filmed it into the game. The blood-colored avatar held the mutated fairy crystal and chose to absorb it, but it was notified that it couldn't be absorbed. Zhou switched his primordial energy art to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, removing the notification that he couldn't absorb it. The crystal immediately transformed into wisps of black and white aura that fused into the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou felt as though there was a faint immortal aura flowing through his body. It was as though his body was a hydrogen balloon that was about to float up. After a while, the feeling gradually disappeared. Only when everything returned to normal did the in-game system give a new notification. Absorbed mutated fairy crystal. Attained transcendent flying immortal. Zhou glanced at the blood-colored avatar's information. Indeed, there was an additional transcendent flying immortal skill in the primordial energy skills column. It wasn't the Dragon Gate flying immortal skill that Zhou knew. Is this transcendent flying immortal a primordial energy skill that only mutated fairies have? Could it be a mutated version of the Dragon Gate flying immortal skill? Zhou hurriedly looked at Transcendent Flying Immortal's introduction. Although the other skills of the mutated fairy were very powerful, what Zhou wanted the most was the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill. There were countless primordial energy skills in the world, and there were countless primordial energy skills with immense destructive power. They only had one effect: to defeat or kill the enemy. However, Zhou didn't like killing. Furthermore, he cherished his life very much. A primordial energy skill like the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill was undoubtedly the best life preservation skill. If he couldn't beat the enemy, he could run. If the enemy couldn't catch up to him, it would be useless no matter how strong they were. Transcendent Flying Immortal. Ascension technique of Transcendent Immortals. The introduction was very vague, but it was likely a primordial energy skill similar to the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill. Zhou carefully sensed the information he had obtained about Transcendent Flying Immortal as he looked pleasantly surprised. The next morning, when he woke up for breakfast, Zhou saw Li Xian and Lai sitting at a table talking. Zhou originally wanted to investigate Lai's origins, but the ruckus caused by the 6 families yesterday had delayed this matter. Lai had returned to the hotel with them. On the way back, Zhou recalled this matter. He originally wanted to take Lai to the officials to investigate the identity he had used to enter the Holy Land, but after telling Sheng about it, Sheng told Zhou that there was no need to go. There was no such person on the Holy Land selection list. Sheng was very certain when he said this. If it was someone on the list, it was impossible for him not to have seen him before. This left Zhou puzzled. If Sheng really wasn't one of the people who had entered the Holy Land, where did he come from? And why was he in the Trajectory Holy Temple? Sheng, what plans do you have for the future? Are you interested in following me? There's definitely nothing wrong with following me. I guarantee you that you will have a good life every day and have endless amounts of beautiful chicks to sleep with. Li Xian seemed to be trying to entice Lai. Lai said with a strange expression, "Why has the world become like this?" It doesn't matter what the world has become. A man has the world as his home. It's the same no matter where he goes. If you follow me in the future, I guarantee that you will have a much better future than being a sailor, Li Xian said as he patted Lai on the shoulder. Zhou found it odd when he heard that. Although Li Xian wasn't a bad person, he wasn't good enough to be a philanthropist. This wasn't like his character at all. Lai didn't answer. When he saw Zhou walk over, he said, "Zhou, you said that I came out of the Trajectory Holy Temple. You have also entered the Trajectory Holy Temple. Do you know why I was inside? You seem to have entered the Trajectory Holy Temple to investigate what happened on your father's ship. I don't know anything else. Don't you remember anything?" Zhou asked. Lai shook his head. "I only remember that my father's ship encountered storm. I can't remember anything else. There's no rush. You can think about it slowly. Li Xian isn't a bad person. If you don't have anywhere to go, why don't you go to his place first? After all, he's rich. There's no need to be afraid of going broke," Zhou said. That's right. Come eat and drink from me. I guarantee that everything will be the best." Li Xian didn't retort at all, making Zhou even more puzzled. After breakfast, Lai wanted to take a walk and see what the world was like, so he went out alone. Seeing Lai walk away, Zhou asked Li Xian, "Why are you so enthusiastic? This isn't like you. Be honest, what are you up to?" "Heavens, haven't you realized it?" Li Xian said exaggeratedly as he looked at Zhou. "Realized what?" Zhou asked with a frown. "That fellow Lai is very strong." Li Xian seemed to feel that this description wasn't enough, as he added, "He's especially strong. At the very least, he's stronger than us." "What do you mean?" Zhou asked in puzzlement. Lai didn't seem to have shown any special combat abilities. "Didn't I use a rope to tie him to the back of my companion beast?" That rope was formed from a legendary 9-scaled segmented snake. If I were bound by it, I wouldn't be able to break free. As for that ally, he easily snapped the 9-scaled segmented snake. It looked very easy. Li Xian said, "Now that this fellow has lost his memories and has nowhere to go, I'll take him in. He'll help me do something. Isn't that perfect?" Chapter 219. Little Lin's Pet Arena was the venue chosen by Sheng. Many of the younger generation from the 6 families had come to the arena. Among them, there was no lack of mid-tier forces in their 20s or 30s. Back then, Tianzhua had suppressed and crippled that generation. Now, another Zhou had appeared. He had crippled more than 30 people from the 6 families. This was a huge humiliation to the 6 families. Thankfully, the 6 families have produced Lance in this generation. Otherwise, we would have to swallow our pride like back then, Xia Bing said with a complicated expression as she glanced at Lance, who was sitting in the resting area. She had always wanted to chase up to, or even surpass Lance, but no matter how hard she tried, the distance between her and Lance only widened. She was almost unable to see Lance's back. Lance clearly didn't inherit the physique of a hero, nor did he cultivate the family's primordial energy art. However, he left everyone in the dust, making it impossible for others to even have the thought of catching up to him. Thankfully, there's only one Lance in this world. Xia Bing sighed inwardly, unsure if she was feeling sad for herself or rejoicing. "He's here," De Guchuan suddenly said. Xia Bing turned to look, and indeed, she saw Zhou arrive at the arena with Sheng and Li Xian. Sheng and Li Xian stayed in the spectator stands while Zhou walked into the arena alone. When Lance saw Zhou, he stood up from the bench in the resting area and walked towards the arena. The descendants of the 6 families were rather calm. Perhaps outsiders might think that Zhou still had a chance, but from their point of view, Zhou had no chance at all. No one below the epic stage was Lance's match. Even those at the epic stage might not be able to defeat him. In a corner of the spectators' stands sat a man and a woman. Both of them wore hats and sunglasses that covered most of their faces. However, anyone familiar with them would be able to recognize them as Liz and Xiao Siyuan. "What do you think?" Xiao Siyuan asked Zhou and Lance. Liz said with a dark expression, "Lance is a talented genius. No one in his generation can be better than him. It's impossible for Zhou to win." Xiao Siyuan said indifferently, "Don't forget that Zhou is someone who has interacted with Jing Daoxian. If he really catches Jing Daoxian's eye, do you still think Lance will definitely win?" "Yes," Liz said with certainty. "Minister, you aren't from the 6 families, so you might not understand Lance very well. His talent is unparalleled. Unless it's absolute strength, no one could defeat him." Xiao Siyuan only smiled and didn't refute Liz's words. Instead, he asked, "Confirm again. Is everyone in place?" Liz nodded slightly and contacted the Special Investigation Bureau personnel scattered around the arena to confirm that they had arrived. "Minister, everything is in place." "Zhou won't be able to escape today," Liz said to Xiao Siyuan. Xiao Siyuan didn't say a word. All he did was look at Sheng, who was sitting in the stands. Sheng was wearing a trench coat and a hat. He was seriously watching the situation in the arena, as though he wasn't paying any attention to them. With that person around, I'm afraid this mission won't be easy to complete. If I had a few people like Sheng by my side instead of Liz, I wouldn't be so tired. Xiao Siyuan sighed inwardly. There were too many people with special privileges in the Special Investigation Bureau. Every one of the 6 families wished to have their own people in the Bureau, but it was hard to say how capable those people were. Although there were indeed many outstanding people in the 6 great families, their origins made them too proud. Sometimes it was difficult for them to truly become good inspectors. A good inspector isn't as simple as being powerful. However, there are pros and cons. Without these people in the Bureau wouldn't have such great privileges. Xiao Siyuan turned to look at Liz and said, "Get someone to keep an eye on Sheng at all times. If he does anything out of the ordinary, report it immediately, no matter how minute the details are. In fact, Xiao Xiyuan was also looking forward to the day when these people from the 6 great clans would learn to give up their pride and self-esteem under his guidance. When that day came, they might become the most terrifying inspectors. However, Liz didn't think much of it. He's only in Tianzua's adjutant. What else can he do with us watching him? Xiao Xiyuan could only patiently explain, don't underestimate Sheng. He's been in charge of the family security for the past few years. Every year, countless people target the family, but the family has never had any problems. Such a person definitely can't be underestimated. Do you know what his other nickname is in Luoyang's military? Devil Adjutant. Mentioning his name in the military is more useful than in Tianzua. Although Liz felt that Holy City was their territory and that an adjutant who was being watched couldn't do anything, Xiao Xiyuan was her superior after all. Therefore, Liz immediately contacted the people watching in Sheng and exhorted them a few more things. In the arena, Zhou Wen walked in front of Lance without any weapons in hand. He had placed a bamboo blade into the chaos space, but he had no intention of using it. The bamboo blade had to see blood when it was drawn, otherwise it would backfire on its owner. Although Zhou Wen didn't believe in such a thing, he felt that there was no need to draw his saber. This was because he wasn't good at saber techniques. The sharp bamboo blade could be used to torture vegetables, but in a battle with Lance, it would instead become a flaw. They said that you have 2 mythical pets. Is that true? Lance asked Zhou Wen. Is there a difference? I don't plan on using pets, Zhou Wen said. Lance smiled brightly, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. I'm already starting to look forward to it. In that case, let's hurry up. I'm still planning on returning home to game. Zhou Wen took a step forward and struck Lance with the first move of the 7 distribution palm, Clear Conscience. Clear Conscience was an extremely firm and yang move. It was a wide-open move, and this move actually didn't match the Ashen Palm strength that Zhou Wen practiced. However, Zhou Wen still fused the Ashen Palm strength into this move. Lance didn't dodge, as he similarly struck out with his palm. His palm was purplish-red, and it looked like a special primordial energy skill. Bam! Zhou Wen felt a stabbing pain in his palm as he couldn't help but retreat. However, Lance's chest trembled as he took 2 steps back. Zhou Wen glanced at his palm and saw that it was covered in blood as though it had been pricked by countless needles. He couldn't help but say, what a vicious primordial energy skill. Likewise, your primordial energy skill is also very sinister, Lance said with a smile. Chapter 220. Zhou Wen used the 7 moves of the 7 distribution palm one by one. The 7 moves weren't connected and their styles were completely different. When Zhou Wen used them consecutively, it was easy for his opponent to adapt to the change in style. However, Lance didn't seem to feel anything. He dealt with every move and blocked all 7 of Zhou Wen's palms. Apart from the first palm, the Ashen Palm hidden in the 7 distribution palm failed to injure Lance. When the feminine hidden force touched Lance's palm, it was immediately dispersed, unable to enter his body. After delivering the 7 palms, Zhou Wen retracted his hand and retreated. Then he said to Lance, I only know these 7 palms. Since you have cracked all 7, I can only admit defeat. You can admit defeat, but you have to let me have my fill first. Lance ignored Zhou Wen's words and charged forward, striking out with a Wind Lightning Fist. Wind Lightning Fist was a relatively common fist-type primordial energy skill in the region where Lance was. The power of the punch contained the might of wind and lightning. It didn't require any powerful technique, just strength to subdue the enemy. Zhou Wen also knew that it was impossible for Lance to let him off so easily. Seeing Lance's punch coming at him, he dispelled the Dragon Gate Fairy skill and circled around Lance. After Zhou Wen learned Transcendent Flying Immortal, the Dragon Gate Fairy skill didn't replace it. Clearly, it wasn't a primordial energy skill. There were still some differences between the two. Indeed, Zhou Wen only knew the 7 palm moves. He had no time to learn other techniques. Upon seeing Zhou Wen dodge, Liz sneered and said, Zhou Wen is doomed. In front of Lance, retreating is equivalent to defeat. It wasn't just Liz. Xia Bing, Dugu Chuan, and the others who had fought Lance knew how terrifying it was to let Lance take the initiative to attack. No one could remain undefeated under his attacks. Dugu Chuan's movement technique was considered top-notch among his peers, but he only managed to last about 10 moves under Lance's attacks. With just 2 punches, Zhou could sense the pressure Lance gave him. Lance's attack style was very unique, something he had never seen before. Although combo punches were very common in martial arts, when it came to real combat, combo punches weren't very useful. Unless you could hit your opponent with the first punch and make them unable to defend, then you would have a chance to use the following combo punches. But if the first punch could hit, then it would be enough to knock him down with a single punch. Why would there be a need for the subsequent punches? Therefore, the combination punch was actually just a supplement. What really mattered was still the first punch that hit the opponent. How to hit the first punch. This was the answer that everyone wanted to know. However, Lance's combination punches were somewhat different. He was like a character in a fighting game. His moves were connected without any gaps, giving Zhou no chance to counterattack. It even gave Zhou the illusion that if he revealed any flaws and allowed him to land the first punch, Lance's subsequent attacks would rain down on him like a torrential storm, KOing him without giving him any chance to react. Zhou pushed the Dragon Gate Fairy skill to its limits as he constantly dodged. His arms and legs were also blocking Lance's attacks. Every time his arms and fists collided, Zhou felt a terrifying force inundate him, causing his bones to groan in pain. What looked like ordinary punches, palms, kicks, and knees produced an effect that was as explosive as a primordial energy skill. This left Zhou very alarmed. Soon, he realized that Lance's seemingly ordinary punches and kicks weren't really ordinary. It was really some kind of primordial energy art that had a powerful augmentation effect on all aspects of strength. Lance's every move was supported by different primordial energy skills. This was the first time Zhou had seen someone who could fight in such a manner. Zhou had only practiced primordial energy skills on his fists and palms, but he hadn't trained in other areas. All he could do was use the Lotus Flower Buddha body to forcefully protect himself. However, the defense of the Lotus Flower Buddha body still couldn't allow Zhou to fight Lance head-on. Every time their bodies collided, Zhou felt as though his bones were about to crack. All he could do was dodge with his movement technique. However, purely with his movement technique, he couldn't completely dodge Lance's crazy attacks. With just a dozen or so punches, Zhou fell into an absolute disadvantage. Dugu Chuan laughed when he saw this. You want to use your movement technique to dodge Lance's attacks and wait for Lance to expend his primordial energy? You're really too naive. This move might work on others, but it's useless against a freak like Lance. Back then, that was what I thought, but I ended up being brutally tortured. Xia Bing said, faintly. Back then, in order to attack like a character in a fighting game, Lance specially learned a primordial energy art that could quickly recover his primordial energy. Furthermore, in order to reduce the expenditure of primordial energy, he specially found dozens of the most basic primordial energy skill crystals. Those primordial energy skills expended very little primordial energy. After learning them, he forcefully raised dozens of rank immortal primordial energy skills to rank 10 legendary through his own insights and practice. Not only is it extremely powerful, but also consumes very little primordial energy. This is something that ordinary people wouldn't even dare dream of, but Lance only took 4 months to complete. If I had Lance's talent, I could be as willful as him. I could also not have a hero physique or learn my family's primordial energy art. I could also game all day like him, John said through gritted teeth. Although he was known as a saint of Covenant College, he knew very well that he was far inferior to the fellow who gamed all day in school. No matter how hard he worked, he didn't even have the right to be that fellow's match. Bam! When the fists collided, Zhou felt a force penetrate his body and travel up his arm. It struck his organs as though they had suffered a heavy blow, as he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Lance actually knew how to use a force that penetrated his body, but it wasn't as strong as Zhou's ashen palm. Zhou's eyes gradually turned serious. He had never encountered such an opponent before. Among his peers, no one had ever given him such pressure. Back then, although Jing had defeated him in one strike, it was an absolute difference in speed and strength brought about by the difference in level. Such a battle had nothing to do with Zhou Wen's abilities. Furthermore, Zhou Wen hadn't learned any combat techniques back then. This time, it was different. Despite being at the same level, Zhou Wen felt immense pressure. This was something he had never felt before. Jiang Yin is right. Lance is much more terrifying than John. Zhou Wen's heart gradually burned with passion. Although he knew that defeating Lance wouldn't benefit him in any way, he wanted to win. He didn't want to lose. After all, Zhou Wen was only a 16 or 17-year-old youth. He couldn't completely control his young and competitive heart, especially when facing a peer like Lance. However, Zhou Wen had spent too much time practicing his primordial energy art in the past. His starting point was too low. He had used his golden years to practice ascetic meditation, but it was useless. In the end, it was replaced by the lost Immortal Sutra. After that, he kept gaming and grinding dungeons. His level and physique had increased, and he had obtained quite a number of primordial energy skills. It was enough to fight ordinary people, but against someone like Lance, it was still far from enough. Chapter 221. Zhou Wen calmed his heart. The more he was at this moment, the calmer he became. The Dragon Gate Fairy skill was pushed to its limits as he dodged like a ghost. From time to time, he would strike out to interrupt Lance's attacks. It's still not enough. If my movement technique can be a little faster, if this mid-air turn could be a little more sudden, and the angle could be a little smaller. Zhou Wen constantly gained insights during the battle, and the realm of lifting lightness and heaviness was used more smoothly by Zhou Wen. 15 punches. He's still not using his companion beast? Duguchuan was somewhat surprised. Zhou Wen dodged and blocked Lance's 15 punches. It should be soon. In less than 10 punches, Zhou Wen will definitely use his companion beast. Otherwise, he will only be defeated. Xiaobing could also tell that Zhou Wen was almost at his limit. Lance's attacks became sharper and sharper, making Zhou Wen feel like he wasn't facing a person, but a huge tsunami. He felt powerless to resist. Under such a terrifying attack, Zhou Wen could only constantly squeeze himself dry, making his every move more concise and efficient, just like what Lance was doing. It was impossible for him to use all sorts of primordial energy skills like Lance, so he could only bet everything on his movement technique to be faster, stronger, and more efficient. Even if it was a millimeter, he had to try his best to save as much time as possible. He didn't allow his body to make any unnecessary movements, squeezing out every bit of potential and possibility. The experience of dying countless times in-game was now very useful. This was because when the blood-colored avatar faced death, Zhou Wen could also feel it. Therefore, even in such a disadvantageous situation, he could still maintain his clarity of mind. His focus talent allowed him to focus wholeheartedly on the battle without any distracting thoughts. Gradually, Zhou Wen's movement technique exceeded the scope of the Dragon Gate Fairy skill and fused with Zhou Wen's unique style. Suddenly, Zhou Wen felt that Lance's attacks weren't that difficult to withstand. His movement trajectory seemed to be able to keep up with Lance's attacks. Even if he didn't use his fists or palms to block, he could gradually dodge Lance's continuous attacks with pure movement techniques. How can that be? Duguchuan widened his eyes as he looked at Zhou Wen. As a person who was proficient in all sorts of movement techniques, he had naturally studied a famous primordial energy skill like the Dragon Gate Fairy skill. He even knew it himself. Furthermore, his Dragon Gate Fairy skill wasn't lower than Zhou Wen's. However, Duguchuan had better movement techniques, so he rarely used the Dragon Gate Fairy skill. Previously, when Zhou Wen used the Dragon Gate Fairy skill, the method of switching between light and heavy left Duguchuan somewhat impressed. However, he was only impressed at Zhou Wen's ingenuity. He had actually used such a method to push the Dragon Gate Fairy skill to rank 10. However, it was only a compliment. He also had a rank 10 movement technique, and it was even better than Dragon Gate Fairy skill. However, He had only lasted less than 20 punches under Lance's hands. However, Zhou Wen's current movement technique clearly exceeded the scope of the Dragon Gate Fairy skill, but it had the foundation of the Dragon Gate Fairy skill. Du Chuan had seen similar movement techniques before. It was the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill possessed by the epic dimensional creature, Fairy. Although the Dragon Gate Fairy skill and the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill only had a one-word difference, the two were worlds apart. The Dragon Gate Fairy skill originated from the Fairy Monkey, but the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill was a true fairy technique. There was an insurmountable quality difference between the two. Zhou Wen was at the legendary stage, so it was impossible for him to learn the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill now. Furthermore, Zhou Wen's previous movement technique proved that he had never learned it before. However, Zhou Wen's current movement technique had traces of the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill. Without using primordial energy crystals, he can raise the Dragon Gate Fairy skill to the epic stage with just his combat experience and comprehension. Du Chuan's expression flickered. If raising in primordial energy skills comprehension to rank 10 was already something that only geniuses could do, then directly raising in primordial energy skill by a huge level, especially when one's level hadn't reached that level, was a little terrifying. Although Du Chuan wasn't willing to believe that Zhou Wen could do it to such an extent, Zhou Wen's movement technique was becoming more and more like the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill. That elegant and peerless posture was something that the Dragon Gate Fairy skill didn't possess. This person seems a little terrifying. Du Chuan suddenly had such a feeling. Xiaobing also looked at Zhou Wen in astonishment. She didn't know movement techniques as well as Du Chuan, but she could tell that Zhou Wen was dodging more and more easily. Lance's attacks seemed to be getting harder and harder to force him to block with his body. Zhou Wen's body was like a flying immortal. When Lance threw a punch, his fist was always 3 inches away from Zhou Wen's body, preventing him from hitting him. Zhou Wen seemed to be using the wind from the punch to move as he gracefully retreated in midair. Du Chuan wasn't wrong, but he wasn't completely right either. Zhou Wen's movement technique was indeed an imitation of a fairy's movement technique, but it wasn't an ordinary fairy's movement technique, but a mutated fairy's. He had fused the mutated fairy's movement technique he had seen into the Dragon Gate Fairy skill, causing it to gradually transform, almost forming a brand new movement technique. Old Zhou's movement technique is getting better, but why does this fellow like movement technique so much? Isn't it better to fight head-on? Don't you think so? Li Xian clearly didn't appreciate Zhou Wen's style. He still preferred to fight head-on. And Sheng, who was sitting beside Li Xian, didn't say a word as he continued watching the battlefield. Xiao Siyuan looked at the two from time to time and happened to see this scene. He couldn't help but frown. After some thought, Xiao Siyuan asked Liz beside him, "Ask the guy who's monitoring Ansheng if there's anything amiss on his end." Liz wasn't in a good mood when she saw that Zhou Wen was able to dodge Lance's attack. She said, "It should be fine. If there's anything, they would have reported it. Then shall I let you be the minister?" Xiao Siyuan's voice turned cold. When Liz met Xiao Siyuan's cold gaze, her heart chilled. She hurriedly said, "Sorry, minister. I'll ask immediately." Liz didn't dare delay any further as she immediately contacted the surveillance personnel. After repeated confirmation, she told Xiao Siyuan, "And Sheng hasn't done anything abnormal. He's been watching the competition." "Something's wrong." "What's wrong?" Xiao Siyuan's expression didn't improve because of Liz's words. Just as Liz was about to say something, Xiao Siyuan suddenly stood up and quickly left his seat. He walked to the other side of the spectator stands, directly opposite Li Xian and Ensheng. Xiao Siyuan stared at Ensheng like an eagle. He kept sizing up Ensheng's face, and the more he looked, the uglier his expression became. Ensheng was wearing a trench coat and a hat, but he didn't deliberately lower his hat or wear sunglasses. His face looked a little like Ensheng's, but Xiao Siyuan was certain that it wasn't Ensheng. Xiao Siyuan's heart immediately turned cold. Chapter 222. Minister, what happened? Liz walked over as well and traced Xiao Siyuan's gaze. She also recognized Ensheng, and, after taking a look, she didn't see anything abnormal. I was too careless. That fellow only wore a hat without lowering the brim. He didn't wear glasses, revealing his entire face. It was to not arouse my suspicions. I should have thought of it. How could a person like Sheng sit here and watch the competition in peace? Everyone, immediately report your location. Xiao Siyuan was no longer in the mood to teach Liz. He directly gave the order over the comms. Everyone reported their locations, and Liz could hear them clearly through the earpiece. After everyone finished reporting, she said, "Minister, everyone is in their designated spots. Everything is normal. There's nothing abnormal. What's wrong with you?" Xiao Siyuan's expression was as cold as ice. Ignoring Liz, Xiao Siyuan directly said over the comms, "And Sheng, I know you're listening. Answer me." In the surveillance room of Little Lin's pet arena, and Sheng sat on a chair and looked at Xiao Siyuan through the surveillance screen. The two inspectors beside him were like puppets, sitting there mechanically. Upon hearing the voice from the walkie-talkie, and Sheng said indifferently, "Speak." Liz imagined that Xiao Siyuan had gone mad, but when she heard the voice over the comms, her expression immediately turned ugly. She wore a look of disbelief. "Don't hurt my people. The Bureau will not take any action while you are in the Holy Land," Xiao Siyuan said after taking a deep breath. Killing an inspector in the Holy City was a heinous crime. Ordinary people definitely wouldn't dare do such a thing, but Xiao Siyuan couldn't forget what Tianzhua had said back then. He also couldn't forget the scene of Sheng crippling Liz without a second thought. The words Devil's Adjutant wasn't just a simple name. As long as Tianzhua gave the order, Sheng would do anything. He was a lunatic. Don't be in such a hurry. Sit down and drink some water. This match is very exciting. Don't you want to finish watching it? Sheng said as he looked to the surveillance screen. "Sheng, if you dare hurt a single strand of their hair, I'll make it so that none of you can leave the Holy Land," Liz said angrily. "Shut up." Xiao Siyuan suppressed his voice to stop Liz before sitting back in the spectator stands. He constantly sized up Little Lin's pet arena. He had to find Sheng's location before the end of the match. That way, he would still have a chance of turning the tables. Suddenly, when he saw a camera on the arena, Xiao Siyuan's eyes lit up. He got up and was about to leave his seat when Sheng's voice sounded from the earpiece again. "Minister Xiao, it's best you sit there and don't move. From now on, with every step you take, an inspector will die. I wonder if the lives of these inspectors are enough for you to walk to the surveillance room. If it's enough, you can walk slowly. I'll sit here and wait for you to send me to prison. This is the Holy City. I can't run away anyway, right?" Gritting his teeth, Xiao Siyuan returned to his seat and dejectedly said, "You win. Don't hurt them. Enjoy this battle. It looks like it will be very exciting," Sheng said lightly. In the arena, Lance's eyes lit up like a gaming fan who had seen a classic game he had long wanted. He couldn't hide the smile on his lips. How interesting. Fighting games are indeed only interesting when there are opponents, Lance said as he stopped his attacks and looked at Zhou. "Sorry, I've said it before. I don't like fighting games. I don't know how it feels," Zhou said. However, Lance ignored Zhou and continued. "Do you know why I like playing games? It's because I can't find an opponent in real life, so I can only find fun in games. The rules and skills in the game restrict me, making me feel a little difficult. Unfortunately, a game is a game after all. There are still rules to be found. No matter how strong the mechanisms are, after playing for a long time and knowing the rules and patterns, I can still easily defeat them. This is why I don't want to know anything about Tianzhua before meeting him. I'm afraid I'll discover his patterns. That way, even if I beat him, it would be very boring. Then you could try leveling up the game. There will always be stronger bosses waiting for you," Zhou said. "So what if there are stronger bosses? It's just that their strength and skills are set to be stronger. In essence, they're no different from ordinary monsters. Powerful bosses are the same, but interesting souls have different charms." Lance stared at Zhou, one with a burning gaze, and said, "It's been a long time since I had such a satisfying battle. It's you who made me find the joy of fighting again. I originally thought that this day would only come when I meet Tianzhua. Actually, I prefer to grind those soulless bosses," Zhou said with a shrug. "No, You aren't that kind of person. Deep down, you are the same as me. You yearn for battle, Lance said as he relaxed his body. As he walked toward Zhou, he said, "Let me see where your limits are." With that said, Lance suddenly moved. However, this time, he didn't use consecutive skills like he did in-game. At the instant he moved, he left behind afterimages as he instantly appeared in front of Zhou. Zhou tapped the ground with his toes and quickly retreated. However, in the next second, the lance in front of him turned blurry. The real lance appeared above Zhou, one like a god that had descended to the mortal world. His fist came crashing down with terrifying battle aura. Even the evolved Dragon Gate fairy skill couldn't dodge the punch. Zhou condensed the great strength Vajra palm and used the 7 distribution palms sky-propping pillar to meet Lance's fist. Boom! Battle aura exploded as the terrifying force caused Zhou's legs to sink into the special rubber ground. Using the collision of forces, Lance's figure strangely borrowed strength in the air and instantly turned blurry, leaving behind an afterimage. His true body had already landed on the ground like a meteor, causing the ground to crack. At the same time, he threw another punch at Zhou. Zhou's legs sank into the ground, making it impossible for him to dodge. He switched his primordial energy art to Dao Body and used an astral suction palm to suck at Lance's fist. Immediately, Lance's fist deviated to the side as his body brushed past Zhou's shoulder. However, Lance's reaction was just too fast. In the blink of an eye, he used the momentum of his charge to twist his body and sweep his leg at Zhou's waist like a blade. The entire action was completed in an instant like a ghost. His primordial energy skills seemed to have broken through the rules of the legendary stage. Xia Bing looked at Lance in a daze, feeling an indescribable feeling. Duguchuan also smiled bitterly inwardly. Lance had gone further than they imagined. In the past, he didn't seem to be serious when fighting them. Chapter 223. Lance had nearly trained his combat skills to the extreme. If Zhou had focused on training his combat skills for a few years, he might have had a chance of competing with Lance. But now, Zhou was unable to fight Lance in terms of pure combat skills. However, Zhou didn't waste his time. He was indeed inferior to Lance in terms of combat skills, but he had his own strengths and characteristics. Seeing that there was no way to dodge, Zhou suddenly released a force from his body. His legs that had sunk into the ground were lifted off the ground, and he charged into the sky as though he had teleported, dodging Lance's kick at his waist. Lance's actions weren't slow either. A terrifying force erupted from his feet as he charged towards Zhou when in midair with a series of afterimages. His entire body burned with violent battle aura like a volcanic eruption. This Lance is too strong. Even Li Xian had to admit that Lance was just too strong. Even if Li Xian were to go up, he would only be beaten up. Xia Bing, Duguchuan, and company revealed smiles as they waited for the moment of Lance's victory. If Zhou couldn't dodge Lance's attack on the ground, it was even more impossible for him to dodge in midair. Indeed, no one at the same level can fight Lance. If Zhou uses a companion beast, he can still last a little longer. He's too naive to think of fighting Lance in melee combat. He's too naive. However, to be able to fight Lance to such an extent, Zhou can indeed be proud, Duguchuan thought. Liz was also feeling pleased. Their operation had completely failed and they had been threatened. She felt aggrieved, but now that Lance could defeat Zhou, it was the only thing that made her happy. Now, Liz only hoped that Lance would cripple Zhou's primordial energy C and let him have a taste of becoming a cripple. However, in the next second, everyone's mouths widened in disbelief. In midair, Zhou's figure seemed to have completely escaped the restrictions of gravity. It was as though he had transformed into a bolt of lightning as he crisscrossed in midair and rapidly charged forward. His target was Lance, who was in midair. Lance's eyes burned with fighting spirit as his battle aura erupted wantonly. His bodily functions were pushed to their limits as he twisted his body and quickly brandished his fists to block Zhou's attacks that streaked across the sky like bolts of lightning. As his movements were too fast, He left behind after images, making it look like Lance had 3 heads and 6 arms to block the lightning-like phantoms. However, no matter how fast Lance's movements were, he wasn't faster than Zhou-Wen's lightning-like attacks. Having 3 heads and 6 arms couldn't withstand the unparalleled fast attacks. In the end, he couldn't withstand all the attacks. After being struck in the chest by a beam of light, his defense immediately collapsed. The crisscrossing beams of light immediately struck Lance's body as though bolts of lightning had passed through his body. Finally, the shadows fused into one, revealing Zhou-Wen's true body. He struck Lance's chest and immediately sent him flying. Bang! Lance fell to the ground and cracked it. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. There was silence in the stands. Duge Chuan, Xia Bing, and the other members of the 6 families wore looks of disbelief. They couldn't believe that Lance would be defeated and bleed. They had never imagined such a scene. Furthermore, the person who defeated Lance was a youth about the same age as him. The scene of the lightning-like attacks was extremely shocking. Liz was so infuriated that she nearly vomited blood. She wished she could immediately mobilize the army to tear Zhou-Wen apart. Lance stood up from the ground and ignored the blood at the corner of his mouth. He stared at Zhou-Wen and asked, "What's the name of that move?" "Transcendent Flying Immortal," Zhou-Wen answered. "Transcendent Flying Immortal? I'll remember it. I'm really happy. I've finally found a way to continue moving forward. The next time we fight, I hope you can give me even more surprises." After saying that, Lance directly fell to the ground. He was severely injured, and they were all internal injuries. To be able to stand up and last until he finished speaking to Zhou-Wen, his willpower was already unparalleled. The medical staff immediately went on stage to save him. Thankfully, Lance had only fainted. Although his injuries were serious, they weren't life-threatening. With Lance's physique, he could quickly recover. Zhou-Wen walked out of the battlefield and left Little Lin's pet arena with Li Xian and Li Xian. Xia Bing and company watched Zhou-Wen leave, but no one stopped him. Their expressions were extremely complicated. Back then, they hadn't seen Tianzua's incident with their own eyes, but now they had personally experienced everything. That transcendent flying immortal was just like that person's name. It was probably something they would never forget for a long time to come. After leaving the arena, Zhou-Wen and company got into a car that drove out of Holy City. The driver was in Sheng, and sitting beside Zhou-Wen, and Sheng took off his hat and wiped away the makeup on his face. It was Alai, "Young Master One. I'm afraid your name will really be in the hands of the 6 families in the future after this battle. You have to be even more careful when entering and exiting," and Sheng said. Zhou-Wen nodded without a word. However, he was thinking about his battle with Lance. If he hadn't used Transcendent Flying Immortal, he would have definitely lost. If Lance had learned a primordial energy skill that could match Transcendent Flying Immortal, he would have lost as well. From the looks of it, although strength and primordial energy skills are important, combat skills can't be neglected. I have to continue learning from teacher when I return. Zhou-Wen secretly made up his mind to make up for his lack of combat skills when he returned. And Sheng originally imagined that they would encounter a lot of trouble on the way out of Holy City, but strangely, nothing happened. As a result, many of Sheng's preparations were useless. In the medical ward, Lance sat by the bed. Beside him was a long-haired girl gently peeling an apple. "Have Zhou-Wen and company left Holy City?" Lance asked. "Don't worry, it's all done. The other families have been stopped," the girl said as she handed the peeled apple to Lance. "That's good. I'll definitely beat him next time," Lance said as he took a bite of the apple. "If you want to win so much, why don't you use your life providence?" The girl seemed to believe that as long as Lance used his life providence, he would definitely win. "That would be boring," Lance said excitedly. "Although I lost this battle, it made me understand something. In the past, I only pursued combat skills, but I neglected the ultimate moves in-game. In the past, I could use ordinary offensive techniques to defeat my opponent, but a fellow like Zhou-Wen wouldn't be so easily defeated by me. It's the same for Tianzua. Therefore, if I can learn many primordial energy skills like Zhou-Wen's transcendent flying immortal and add them to my combat skills, It would be even more interesting, seeing Lance's focused and excited look. The girl only sat by the side and listened quietly with a gentle smile. Chapter 224. Joan was somewhat vexed. His strength and speed stats have been enhanced by the God Power Crystal, allowing them to break through to 21 points. However, his primordial energy and constitution still hadn't broken through. Now, there were no God Power Crystals for him to obtain unless he waited another 10 years for the Holy Land to open again. Unfortunately, Joan couldn't wait 10 years. Even if he could wait 10 years, the family probably wouldn't give him the spot. How do I break through to 21 points in constitution and primordial energy? Joan thought about it, but couldn't think of a solution. Since there are God Power Crystals in the Holy Land, there might be them in other dimensional zones. I can only search for them in game dungeons. When Joan thought of the game dungeons, he couldn't help but think of the golden flying ant and the white cocoon. Now that his Dragon Gate fairy skill had a breakthrough and he had learned Transcendent Flying Immortal, he might have a chance of obtaining the white cocoon. I originally planned on taking you to the dimensional zones that I didn't have the chance to visit when I returned, but forget it. Let's go when we have the chance next time. And Sheng said as he drove. No one objected. Joan had offended the 6 families. It wasn't appropriate for them to continue loitering outside. It was best they returned to Luoyang as soon as possible, as he was afraid that something would happen, and Sheng didn't choose to fly back. He drove all the way, and when the car reached a mountain road, he saw a girl sitting in the middle of the road waving at them. The 4 of them stopped the car and saw that the girl's ankle had suffered a serious injury. It was as though she had been bitten by something. The wound was very deep, and her bones were damaged. I was attacked by a dimensional creature nearby. All my companion beasts have died in battle, and I'm injured. It's difficult for me to walk. Can you take me to a nearby city? The girl requested. Did you get hurt near here? There shouldn't be any dimensional zones nearby, right? Li Xian asked the girl. I think so too, but a dimensional creature appeared here. I nearly lost my life because of it, the girl said. Where did you encounter the dimensional creature? What kind of dimensional creature was it? And Sheng stared at the girl and asked. It's about half a kilometer ahead. It's a snow-white, ape-shaped dimensional creature. The girl recounted what had happened. After Sheng heard this, he agreed to give the girl a ride. Li Xian found an opportunity to check in Sheng's car and whispered to him, Brother Sheng, is there a problem with this woman? We've just offended the 6 great clans, and now we've met an injured woman in the wilderness. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? If there's a problem with her, then all the more I should keep her by my side. I'd rather have the enemy in my hands, and Sheng said. Li Xian thought that it made sense, so he didn't say anything else. When the car resumed its journey, Joan saw many traces of battle on the road. There were quite a lot of rubble and some terrifying claw marks. From the looks of it, the woman didn't seem to be completely lying. At the very least, there had definitely been a battle here. As for whether her opponent was a dimensional creature or a human, it was hard to say. Li Xian was very good at chatting with women, so he quickly started chatting with the woman. The woman said that her surname was Zhang, and her full name was Zhang Yuji. She was from East Capital and was a freelance dimensional creature hunter. Typically, even if one entered a dimensional zone to adventure or hunt dimensional creatures, they would join a large corporation or federation organization. Only a small number of people chose to become freelance hunters. They would enter dimensional zones alone or with a few friends to hunt dimensional creatures. This woman looked to be in her early 20s. According to the current education system, most people could attend college at the age of 16 or 17. After 4 years of college, they would be in their early 20s. It was somewhat unexpected that a woman who had just graduated would choose to become a freelance hunter. There was something else that Zhou Wan and company were very concerned about. The East Capital was very close to Luoyang and was now under Luoyang's jurisdiction. This woman was actually from the East Capital and happened to be heading the same way as them. When Li Xian chatted with Zhang Yuji, he deliberately asked her a lot about the East Capital. Zhang Yuji answered him fluently as though she was a local born in the East Capital. She even knew the shops in the old alleys. When they arrived at the place where Zhang Yuji said she had encountered the dimensional creature, they didn't see the white ape. Instead, there were quite a number of fallen rocks blocking the way. Li Xian went down to clear the road and swept the rubble to the bottom of the mountain path. However, after moving the rubble away, he realized that there was a corpse beneath it. The corpse was a white ape. It was similar to Zhang Yuji's description. It was likely the one she had seen before. "Did you kill it?" And Sheng asked Zhang Yuji after inspecting the white ape's corpse. "No, I was nearly killed by it. All my companion beasts were killed by it. So how could I have the ability to kill it?" Zhang Yuji shook her head with certainty. "That's strange. Why would it die here if you didn't kill it?" Li Xian asked. "I don't know about that. Perhaps there are others here." Zhang Yuji sized up her surroundings, but there was no one on the winding mountain road. On one side of the mountain road was a cliff, and on the other side was a straight mountain wall. It was impossible for anyone to hide here. Zhou was also looking at the corpse. He saw a bloody hole in the white ape's chest, as though its heart had been dug out. It had died a tragic death. And Sheng moved the white ape's corpse to the side and said to them, "Get in the car. Let's continue walking." Just as Zhou was about to get in the car, he swept his gaze to the side and realized that there was a boundary stone by the side of the road. Boundary stones weren't rare. In the past, they were used to demarcate the boundaries between regions, between cities, countries, and even between towns and villages. There would be boundary stones to demarcate each other's territory. After the dimensional storms, basically no one used boundary stones anymore. This was because most regions had dimensional zones, making it difficult to demarcate them. However, one could often see boundary stones left behind on the road. However, they were no longer of any use now. It wasn't rare to see a boundary stone here, but what was rare was that Zhou actually saw a tiny palm symbol on it. Zhou was just too familiar with the tiny palm symbol. Although it was in the corner of the boundary stone and looked inconspicuous, he still saw it at a glance. In the middle of that strange little palm pattern was a skull, making it look even more eerie and eerie. And the 4 words engraved on the boundary stone didn't look like a place. The 4 words were Yin Yang Boundary Stone. Chapter 225. Zhou took out his phone and snapped a picture of the boundary stone. Indeed, he entered the loading interface. "Zhou, what are you doing?" "Get in the car," Li Xian shouted at Zhou from inside the car. "Take a look at this boundary stone. There seems to be something wrong with it," Zhou said as he pointed at it. Li Xian and company alighted from the car and walked to the boundary stone. Li Xian said when he saw it, "Is this a prank?" And Sheng walked in front of the stone monument and touched it. Then he used his hands to dig at the soil beneath the stone monument. Then he frowned and said, "This stone monument wasn't buried recently. It should have been here for a long time. It doesn't look like a prank targeted at us." "It's not a prank. Why would there be something like the Yin Yang boundary stone? Could it be that passing this boundary stone will really allow one to cross the Yin Yang world and reach the netherworld?" Li Xian joked. "I don't know if we'll enter the netherworld, but there's nothing wrong with being careful. Keep your eyes peeled." And Sheng carefully looked around, but didn't find anything abnormal. There was only one mountain path, and there were no dimensional zones nearby. It was impossible for Sheng to turn back just because of the appearance of a boundary stone. Zhou said, Sheng, let's take another path. I feel that something's amiss up ahead. Could it be a newly appeared dimensional zone?" "All right." And Sheng nodded slightly. He also felt that something was amiss. However, if they were to take a detour, they would have to walk for more than 10 hours. He turned the car around and drove back the way he came. He drove to the fork at the foot of the mountain and went around to another mountain road. He continued to go forward from the other side. This road was a long detour, and it was not easy to walk on. The car could not drive very fast. The road was filled with potholes and was especially difficult to traverse. The car vibrated violently as Zhou took a look at his phone. The download had been completed and the Yin Yang world icon appeared on the phone's home screen. However, Zhou typically only played the ant nest dungeon in front of others. Now that he was in front of so many people, he couldn't open the Yin Yang world dungeon. After driving for most of the day, Zhou felt like he was about to fall apart from the shaking. Li Xian and Alai also felt a little uncomfortable. The three of them nearly fainted from the shaking. Creak! The sudden breaking made the three of them sober up quite a bit, and their heads almost squeezed into the back of the front seat. "Brother Shang, what's going on?" Li Xian asked. "There's another boundary stone up ahead," and Shang said as he opened the car door and walked out. Zhou and company walked down as well. Indeed, they saw another boundary stone beside the mountain path. On it were the words, "Yin Yang Boundary Stone." However, Zhou didn't see the tiny palm symbol on the stone. "Is it that creepy?" Li Xian looked around. The sky was almost dark, and what he could see was very limited. "Ah Sheng, is there another way?" Zhou asked. "No, the dimensional zones have cut off most of the paths. If we were to take another detour, it would take too long unless we don't pass through this mountainous region." And Sheng thought for a moment and said, "How about this? It's getting dark now, and there aren't any street lamps. It's not convenient to go back. Let's find a place to camp. Then, when the sky brightens, we'll go back to find an airport and take a plane back." "All right, let's do it that way." Zhou felt that it was for the best. It wasn't wise to risk crossing the Yin-Yang World's stone monument. And Sheng took out simple tents and other tools from the car. He found an empty space by the side of the road and set up a tent. He even placed some warning posts to prevent other cars from hitting their tents. Although the possibility of a car coming here was relatively low, and Sheng still took care of everything. Li Xian and Zhang Yuji chatted while Alai lit a fire to prepare food. Zhou sat in the car and was just about to open the Yin-Yang World dungeon to see what was inside when he suddenly heard Li Xian's surprised voice. "What's that?" Zhou hurriedly got out of the car and saw Li Xian pointing in the direction of the Yin-Yang boundary stone with a look of surprise. Zhou looked over and saw a woman in red standing on the other side of the Yin-Yang boundary stone. To be precise, it was likely a woman wearing a red wedding dress. Zhou had seen such clothes on television when he was young. He heard that it was a rather ancient tradition. Nowadays, women would wear white wedding dresses when they got married. In the ancient times of the East District, white was something worn when a dead person died. One had to wear red when they got married. Young ladies from rich families would wear embroidered red silk wedding dresses when they got married. They would also have a red veil over their heads. Only on the wedding night could the groom remove the bride's red veil. The woman standing on the other side of the Yin-Yang boundary stone was like a red-dressed bride in a television drama. Her head was also covered with a red veil. She stood behind the stone monument as though she was looking at them. "Who's playing tricks over there?" Perhaps it was because the trembling Zhang Yuji had triggered the secretion of Li Xian's male hormones. But he was shockingly bold as he shouted at the woman in red behind the Yin-Yang boundary stone. The woman in red didn't answer and continued standing there motionlessly. Although there was a red cloth covering her head, Zhou and company felt that she was staring at them. Seeing that the woman in red didn't answer, Li Xian was somewhat angry. He summoned a legendary black-eyed leopard and ordered it to pounce at the woman in red. And Sheng, Zhou and company stared at the black-eyed leopard and saw it quickly cross the stone monument. It leaped into the air and pounced at the woman in red with its sharp claws. What happened next immediately made the five of them widen their eyes as their scalps tingled. The black-eyed leopard passed through the woman in red's body as though the woman's body was just an illusion. Don't tell me we really encountered a ghost. Li Xian felt a little guilty when he saw this scene. He wasn't afraid of real bullets, but no matter how strong he was, he still felt a little uncomfortable encountering ghosts. Just as Li Xian was about to order the black-eyed leopard to continue attacking, he saw the woman in red move. Only then did everyone notice that the woman's feet weren't touching the ground at all. She had been floating in the air the entire time, and they could clearly see the pair of red embroidered shoes on her feet. Due to the boundary stone's obstruction, the few of them had imagined that she was standing. Now that they saw this scene, they had the urge to turn around and flee. Even Zhou was no exception. When he was young, he had heard his grandfather tell him many ghost stories. One of them was the story of a ghost bride. He thought to himself, "Don't tell me I really encountered a ghost bride?" When he was young, his grandfather had told him the story of a ghost bride. It scared him so much that he didn't dare sleep the entire night. The moment he fell asleep, a red-dressed female ghost in a wedding dress would come to claim his life. It was a childhood nightmare. I just want to play games in peace. I just want to play games in peace. Chapter 226. However, Joan only felt a little guilty. He didn't really turn around and run. He knew that, even if it was really Ghost Bride, she was only a dimensional creature. He already had legendary strength, so he didn't need to be afraid of Ghost Bride. Lixin seemed to have thought of this as well. He emboldened himself and ordered his black-eyed leopard to pounce at Ghost Bride again. Ghost Bride also charged at the black-eyed leopard. Their bodies met in midair, and the black-eyed leopard passed through Ghost Bride's body once again, failing to injure her at all. However, after the black-eyed leopard landed, it let out a tragic howl as its body staggered to the ground. There was a bloody hole in its chest, as though someone had dug out its heart. Companion beasts were formed from life crystals, so they naturally didn't have a real heart. However, such an injury caused the black-eyed leopard's body to collapse. A legendary pet was gone just like that. The way the black-eyed leopard died was almost identical to the white ape from before. After Ghost Bride killed the black-eyed leopard, she stood behind the boundary stone and looked at Joan and company without any intention of rushing over. She doesn't dare cross the boundary stone. When Lixin realized this, he immediately became bolder. He summoned another legendary pet and charged at Ghost Bride. Previously, he and Joan had snatched quite a number of legendary companion eggs in the Holy Land. He had also split quite a number. Since he had nothing to do on the way, he hatched a few. Now they came in handy. The snake-shaped legendary pet rushed in front of Ghost Bride and spat out a mouthful of venom. However, the venom failed to touch Ghost Bride's body. After passing through her, it landed on the ground. The snake pet pounced forward in an attempt to wrap around Ghost Bride's body, but it was useless. Ghost Bride seemed to be a real ghost. It couldn't touch her body at all. However, there were 5 additional claw holes on the snake pet's body. It died once again. Lixin was enraged. He wanted to summon a companion beast to fight Ghost Bride again, but Enchung stopped him. Don't waste a companion beast. That should be a dimensional creature of the ghost type. Ordinary physical attacks are useless against ghost-type dimensional creatures, Enchung said as he summoned a companion beast. Before Joan and company could see what the companion beast looked like, it had already transformed into a wooden fish that landed in Enchung's hand. Enchung struck the wooden fish a few times. Joan and company didn't find the sound special, but the Ghost Bride's body trembled as though her body had been punched. Enchung kept striking the wooden fish, but Ghost Bride's body no longer trembled. The sound of the wooden fish seemed to have no effect on her. Enchung frowned slightly. My Buddha wooden fish is considered an excellent grade item at the legendary stage. It has a restraining effect on ghost-type dimensional creatures, yet it can't injure that Ghost Bride. From the looks of it, her level isn't low. Do you have any other companion beasts that can restrain her? When asked, no, not all Buddha-type companion beasts can restrain ghosts. I only obtained this Buddha wooden fish by chance. I've never used it before. One of master to ghost and ghost, one is to Thankfully, young master one was meticulous and discovered the yin-yang boundary stone. Otherwise, if we were to rush in without a companion beast that can restrain those ghost-type dimensional creatures, we would easily die inside. Joan felt ashamed inwardly. If he hadn't seen the tiny palm symbol, he wouldn't have noticed anything amiss with the boundary stone. I don't believe that there's no companion beast that can deal with her. Lixin didn't believe it as he summoned a few more companion beasts. Without exception, they were all killed by Ghost Bride. Furthermore, they couldn't even touch Ghost Bride's body. It infuriated Lixin so much that he wanted to vomit blood. However, Lixin was only relying on his many companion beasts. He didn't dare enter to fight Ghost Bride himself. When humans explored new dimensional zones, they basically relied on companion beasts to pave the way. Even so, people often died. For example, if Joan and company mistakenly entered the yin-yang world, it wouldn't be of much use even if they had companion beasts. They could easily be killed by ghosts. The few companion beasts that Li Xian had hatched had been killed by Ghost Bride. He still had a few companion beasts, but they were all excellent grade ones he had carefully selected. For example, he couldn't bear to use the three-eyed Golden Warrior and Thunder God General. If they were killed by Ghost Bride, his heart would ache. Although Li Xian was indignant, he gave up on the idea of attacking Ghost Bride. However, at that moment, Ghost Bride floated out from behind the yin-yang boundary stone, and Sheng's expression changed as he rushed in front of everyone and shouted, "No good. She's a breakout creature. Quickly get in the car and retreat immediately." The few of them didn't dare delay. They abandoned their tents and entered the car, but they realized that the car couldn't be started. The flames of the lit bonfire also turned from yellow to a blood-red color. It left one flustered. The Ghost Bride ignored Sheng, who was standing in front of her, and floated towards Zhou Wan and company. A cold glint flashed in Sheng's eyes as lightning appeared on his palm. He struck the Ghost Bride, immediately sending her retreating dozens of feet and floating far into the air. "Brother Sheng, why didn't you say that lightning can restrain ghosts? Let me help you." Li Xian was delighted when he saw this. He hurriedly summoned his Thunder God General and transformed it into the Thunder God's sword in his hand. He slashed at Ghost Bride. The Thunder God's sword slashed at Ghost Bride with lightning, but Ghost Bride extended a pale hand and grabbed the Thunder God's sword. Then, with a forceful swing, she threw Li Xian and his sword out. Bam! Li Xian's body slammed into the mountain wall, immediately causing his face to swell. Even his nose bridge was fractured. Lightning elemental powers have a certain level of damage to ghosts, but the effects will be much weaker. I can only produce 1 or 2% of the effects with my epic lightning powers. What's the use of that bit of lightning power of yours? As Sheng spoke, he struck out with another bolt of lightning, sending Ghost Bride flying again. However, he could only send her flying. He was unable to seriously injure her. Ghost Bride was sent retreating by Sheng again and again, but she pounced forward again and again. For a moment, she was in a stalemate. We don't have companion beasts or powers that can restrain ghosts. It's very difficult to kill her. I'll hold her back. Leave first and meet up in Dadong Town, and Sheng said. Zhou Wen's heart stirred when he heard Sheng say that. He summoned Truth Listener. This fellow was a mythical pet from a place like Small Buddha Temple. Furthermore, the legendary Truth Listener was a soul-suppressing beast from hell. Perhaps it had the ability to restrain such ghost creatures. The moment Truth Listener was summoned, its eyes shimmered with a golden glow as it stared intently at Ghost Bride. In the next second, Truth Listener transformed into a golden beam of light and pounced at Ghost Bride. Chapter 227. Truth Listener transformed into a golden beam of light and instantly appeared in front of Ghost Bride. Ghost Bride's body trembled. Facing the epic Sheng without any fear, Ghost Bride actually turned around to escape. However, Truth Listener wasn't willing to let her off. It pressed its claw on her back. The claw was like a golden seal that left a mysterious golden mark on the Ghost Bride's back. Ghost Bride's body shimmered with golden light after she ran a distance. Amidst the golden light, her soul dissipated, leaving only a red crystal that fell. Truth Listener's tiny claw grabbed the red crystal, and with a whoosh, it jumped back and landed in Zhou Wen's palm, placing the red crystal in his hand. Old Zhou, what pet is this? Why is it so awesome? Li Xian widened his eyes as he looked at Truth Listener in Zhou Wen's palm that resembled a golden monkey as he asked in surprise. And Sheng also sized up Truth Listener in surprise. Clearly, he was very curious. A legendary companion beast. However, it has a Buddha-type attribute. It should have a restraining effect on ghosts, which is why it was able to kill Ghost Bride so easily. Zhou Wen unsummoned Truth Listener and carefully looked at the red crystal in his hand. He realized that it was a companion egg. Ghost-type companion beasts are currently very rare. Typical ghost-type companion beasts are immune to physical strength and most elemental attacks. However, typically speaking, ghost-type companion beasts have relatively weak offensive strength. They are better at curses. This ghost bride's offensive strength is rather powerful. It's considered rare among ghost-type pets. Although she's only at the legendary stage, due to her characteristics, it's very useful for exploring new dimensional zones. Even if we encounter an epic creature, it's very difficult to kill her as long as her stats aren't restraining, and Sheng said as he looked at the companion egg in Zhou Wen's hand. Zhou Wen threw the ghost bride companion egg at Sheng, and Sheng caught it and was slightly taken aback. "Young Master One, what are you doing?" "I'm still a student, so I naturally don't have the chance to explore new dimensional zones. It's not very useful to keep her. Take her to the army. Perhaps it can reduce the sacrifices of those soldiers." And Sheng had spent a lot of effort taking care of them along the way. It could even be said that he had risked his life. All Zhou Wen wanted was to repay him. Although ghost bride companion beasts were rare, Zhou Wen had already downloaded the Yin Yang World Dungeon. Furthermore, he had Truth Listener that restrained Ghost Bride. It wouldn't be difficult for him to obtain Ghost Bride companion beasts in the future. A companion egg can't solve the problem of an army. If I can equip a large number of Ghost Brides, it will be very useful. As Sheng spoke, he returned the Ghost Bride companion egg to Zhou Wen. If young Master Wen really wants to help soldiers, join the army after graduation. With your abilities, you will definitely be able to accomplish great things. "We'll see when the time comes," Zhou Wen said with a shake of his head. Even if he wanted to join the military, he wouldn't join in Tianzuo's unit. As though reading Zhou Wen's mind, and Sheng shook his head slightly and didn't say another word. After packing up their things, they returned the way they had come. Even with an epic expert like Sheng around, they couldn't casually barge into an unknown dimensional zone to take the risk. Furthermore, this dimensional zone was the strangest ghost type. Old Zhou quickly hatched that ghost bride. "I want to see what she looks like. After she hatches, get her to take off her red veil for us to see," Li Xian said to Zhou when curiously as they sat in the car. Zhou also wanted to see what the ghost bride stats were, but it wasn't convenient for him to use his phone in front of Li Xian and company. Therefore, he listened to Li Xian's suggestion and took out the ghost bride companion egg. Zhou rarely hatched companion eggs himself. He basically hatched them in-game. With the companion egg in hand, he injected his primordial energy into it. Immediately, he felt his primordial energy flow into the egg like a breached dam. Soon, there wasn't a single drop left. There was even a feeling that it was in short supply. This left Zhou Wen slightly taken aback. Although his primordial energy hadn't reached 21 points, it was at least 20. Typical legendary companion eggs needed 18 or 19 primordial energy to hatch. They were already considered excellent grade, but this ghost bride didn't even have 20 primordial energy. This was quite impressive, as expected of a fellow who dares to walk out of a dimensional zone. He really looks different. Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and forcefully withstood the companion egg's pressure. Thankfully, he had a Dao body, so his primordial energy recovered very quickly. It wasn't difficult for him to survive. The companion egg finally hatched and transformed into a red beam of light that imprinted itself on Zhou Wen's forehead. It transformed into a red dot tattoo, as though Zhou Wen had a red birthmark on his glabella. "Quick, summon her to take a look," Li Xian said eagerly. "It's so crowded in the car. How can I summon her?" Zhou Wen asked. "Your intelligence really isn't good. She has a ghost body. The things in the car can't touch her," Li Xian said. However, Zhou Wen shook his head. "Let's wait until we reach a resting place." Finding an opportunity when no one was paying attention, Zhou Wen glanced at the Ghost Bride stats on his phone. He never expected her name to be Ghost Bride. Ghost Bride, Legendary Life Providence, Ghost King's Wife Strength, 19 Speed, 20 Constitution, 19 Primordial Energy, 21 Talent Skill, Ghost, Spirit Absorption, Yin Wind Claw, Jinx's husband companion form. Ghost Eye, her primordial energy actually is 21 points. Isn't this an attribute point that only mythical creatures have? An ordinary legendary creature can actually reach such a point? Zhou Wen was alarmed as he looked at her talent skill. His expression turned even odder. Is Jinx's considered a skill? Looking at her companion form, He didn't know what the ghost eye meant. He could only roughly guess that Ghost Bride could transform into an eye. Just as Zhou was studying Ghost Bride stats, he suddenly felt Ensheng slam on the brakes. The tires rubbed against the surface, emitting an ear-piercing sound. Li Xian was slamming the brakes when he lost his balance and slammed his head into the back of the seat in front of him. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Zhang Yuji, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, scream at an extremely high decibel level. Ahead, there's a ghost ahead. Zhou Wen and Li Xian looked ahead and looked in the direction of the headlights. Immediately, their expressions changed. On the road in front of them, a group of white-robed ghosts appeared. They walked over in a grandiose manner. Among them, there was even a ghost carrying a red-painted coffin. When they walked over, the entire sky seemed to be enveloped by a terrifying ghostly aura. Instantly, the surroundings seemed to turn into a ghost domain. The white-robed ghosts had green faces and fangs. They didn't look like humans, and the red-painted coffin emitted a strange black gas. It looked eerie and terrifying. Chapter 228. Zhou Wen and company's faces turned livid. There were countless ghosts in front of the mountain path, carrying the coffin like a funeral procession. When they were about 100 meters away from Zhou Wen and company, the ghosts carrying the coffin stopped. However, it was only for a moment. In the next second, the ghosts roared and charged forward like a tidal wave. There's no other way. We can only storm our way out. And Sheng summoned a dagger, opened the car door, and walked out. Zhou Wen, Li Xian, Alai, and Zhang Yuji alighted from the car. Zhang Yuji's face was pale, but she was already prepared for battle. Clearly, she knew that it was useless no matter how afraid she was. They had to charge out. Follow behind me. And Sheng walked in front as he stared at the ghosts that were charging at him. When the ghosts were about 5 meters away from him, the dagger in his hand finally moved. The dagger produced a blade beam that resembled a rainbow as it slashed at the surging ghosts. Immediately, the row of ghosts at the front was sliced in half. The few ghosts at the back suffered the impact as their bodies were sent flying backward. The might of the strike seemed powerful, but Zhou Wen couldn't help but frown. And Sheng's blade beam would probably have killed a large number of ordinary legendary creatures. However, this strike only killed 3 or 4 ghosts at the front. Furthermore, they were only ordinary legendary ghosts. Clearly, Sheng's strength wasn't effective against ghosts. In just an instant, the ghost army drowned Zhou Wen and company as they attacked from all directions. Sheng led the charge while Alai and Li Xian guarded the flanks. Zhou Wen was at the back. As Zhang Yuji's pets had died in battle and her feet were injured, she walked in the middle to prevent the occasional ghost from slipping through. And Sheng's gaze was cold as he constantly brandished his dagger. Wherever the blade beam went, even ghosts would have their bodies sliced apart. He carved out a bloody path through the tidal wave of ghosts as he charged forward with Zhou Wen and company. Li Xian brandished the Thunder God sword in his hand. Although the effects of lightning on Ghost Bride were limited, it was rather effective against ordinary ghosts. Furthermore, his invincible Kane Divine art seemed to have a certain effect on ghosts. Although he couldn't directly kill ghosts like in Sheng, he could still make the ghosts around him howl in pain. Alai's situation was rather odd. He was clearly a little afraid and didn't seem to have practiced any special combat skills. It didn't seem like he had any primordial energy skills, but when his fist struck the ghosts, he was able to send them flying. A few of them were nearly dissipated by him. Li Xian is right. Alai is indeed powerful. Zhou Wen was relatively relaxed. Truth Listener was right in front of him. When a ghost rushed over, Truth Listener charged forward like a stream of light and shattered the ghost with a single claw. Zhou Wen switched his primordial energy art to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Any ghost that escaped the net would charge at him with a palm strike. He realized that with the augmentation of the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, hitting a ghost was no different from hitting a living creature. He directly shattered the ghost's head. The small perfection of Wisdom Sutra indeed has the effect of restraining ghosts. Zhou Wen felt a lot more at ease. According to the present situation, They should be able to charge out if it was just the ghost army blocking their way. However, when Zhou Wen's gaze landed on the red-painted coffin that emitted a black aura, he had an ominous feeling. And Sheng led everyone forward and killed countless ghosts along the way. There were many ghost crystals on the ground, but no one had the time to pick them up. Truth Listener seemed to like these ghost crystals. Its body charged forward like lightning and swallowed the crystals. It was even more excited from the killing. Without waiting for Zhou Wen's instructions, it took the initiative to kill the nearby ghosts. Its restraining effect on ghosts was just too strong. Legendary ghosts were basically killed with a swipe of its claw. Those ghosts had no ability to resist in front of it. The 5 of them constantly charged through the ghost horde and were about to approach the coffin. Perhaps due to the stimulation from Zhou Wen and company killing the ghosts, the red-painted coffin that emitted a black aura began to tremble violently. When Zhou Wen and company were less than 10 meters away from the coffin's lid suddenly flipped open. A hand reached out from the coffin and pressed against the side of the coffin. It was as pale as snow. Its fingers were slender and long, as though it was covered in skin and bones. Its fingernails were silver, long and sharp like sharp blades. There seemed to be a faintly discernible black aura emanating from that hand. Zhou Wen's heart palpitated as Sheng's expression turned solemn. The few of them continued charging forward without a word. The ghostly hand pressed hard on the coffin, and a figure slowly stood up. It was a man with white hair and black armor. His entire body was covered in black armor, and even his face was covered in a ghostly mask. His entire body emitted a faintly discernible black aura. He looked eerie, but also had an evil charm. The black-armored, white-haired ghost in the coffin slowly floated up as it stared at Truth Listener and Sheng. In the next instant, it appeared in front of Sheng as though it had teleported. The silver fingernails on the ghost's hand were like 5 sharp daggers that stabbed at Sheng's head. Sheng's reaction was extremely fast. He raised his dagger and slashed at the ghost's claw like a rainbow, forcefully repelling it. Retreat, Sheng said in a deep voice with a solemn expression. Zhou Wen and Li Xian knew that something was amiss. Behind them was the yin-yang boundary stone. If they retreated, they would retreat into the yin-yang world. Despite knowing this, Sheng still made them retreat. Clearly, he had encountered a very serious problem. It was likely that even he wasn't confident of defeating the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Without a word, Zhou Wen charged back with Truth Listener. Li Xian, Alai, and Zhang Yuji followed closely. However, Sheng didn't retreat. He held his dagger and stared intently at the black-armored, white-haired ghost. The black-armored, white-haired ghost also looked at Sheng as the black aura on his body became more obvious. The other ghosts seemed to be unable to see Sheng. They stopped attacking him and charged at the fleeing Zhou Wen and company. Sheng's aura grew stronger and stronger as a strange shadow rose from his body. It was as though a great demon had descended on him. The purple light seemed to dye his body purple. Bam! Zhou Wen heard a terrifying explosion from Sheng's side. He saw a ghostly aura rise, mixed with a demonic purple light. It was unknown how many ghosts had been dispersed. However, there were just too many ghosts. There were still countless ghosts charging at them. Without Sheng fending off the attacks of most of the ghosts, their situation immediately worsened. Although Truth Listener could restrain ghosts, it was only a legendary pet after all. It could only kill one ghost at a time and didn't have an AoE skill. When it killed a ghost, more ghosts would pounce on it. Chapter 229. Zhou Wen charged ahead as he constantly punched out with his fists, but he could only force back 2 or 3 ghosts. Seeing more and more ghosts surround them, Zhou Wen and company couldn't charge forward at all. They were trapped in their spots. Zhou Wen summoned Banana Fairy and fanned the ghosts in front of him with a gust of granding wind. A gust of wind blew past, immediately blowing away a large number of ghosts in front of them. However, after the ghosts were blown away, they quickly pounced forward again without suffering too much damage. Zhou Wen immediately understood that the power of the Grand Yin wind was a Yin-type wind. Ghosts were originally of extreme Yin, so the wind attribute of the Grand Yin wind was effective against them. However, the cold attribute wasn't very effective against these ghosts. It could only send them flying, but it couldn't freeze them. It's good that I can send them flying. Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and charged forward. His Tao body quickly recovered his primordial energy. When his primordial energy was almost recovered, he fanned again. Li Xian blocked most of the ghosts from behind as the wounds on his body increased. With Zhou Wen's fanning, he immediately sent a large number of ghosts flying, giving Li Xian some breathing space. Zhou Wen summoned the three-eyed golden warrior, saber shield knight, demonized general, silver ant flying wings, and mutated lotus flower ant, but the effects weren't very good. Among them, only the golden warrior's golden palm dealt decent damage to the ghosts. The attacks of the other pets were very limited against the ghosts. They didn't even have much of an effect. Soon, Zhou Wen unsummoned them. This was the real world. If they died, they would really die. There was no way to revive them. These were all excellent grade companion beasts in Zhou Wen's hands, so he couldn't bear to let them die. Zhou Wen summoned Ghost Bride again. Ghost Bride's figure was erratic as a pair of pale white hands with red nails penetrated a ghost's head wherever they went. Then, the ghost was absorbed by her palm as her nails turned even redder like blood. Ghost Bride's erratic slaughter was even more efficient than Zhou Wen's. She shared a lot of the pressure on Zhou Wen and company. With the powerful support of Banana Fairy, Truth Listener, and Ghost Bride, Zhou Wen and company took an unknown period of time before they finally rushed back to a spot not far from the yin-yang boundary stone. From time to time, earth-shattering explosions sounded from afar, calming Zhou Wen and company. At the very least, they knew that Ensheng was still fighting the black-armored, white-haired ghost and hadn't been killed. However, they were a loss. Ensheng had only asked them to rush back, but he didn't say what they should do. Now that they were about to rush to the yin-yang boundary stone, were they supposed to cross it? He had already been chased by ghosts to the point where there was no way out. If he entered the underworld, wouldn't it be even worse? Zhou Wen, who was at the front, couldn't help but look in the direction of the yin-yang boundary stone. His pupils constricted as though he had seen an extremely terrifying scene. Holy **T. Li Xian also looked in the direction of the boundary stone and immediately exclaimed. Behind the boundary steel, there was a group of red-clothed female ghosts. Their numbers were no less than the white-clothed ghosts here. At this moment, they were blocking the boundary steel like a sea of red flowers. However, the red-clothed female ghosts were somewhat different from Zhou Wen's Ghost Bride. Although they were also dressed in red, their red robes were ordinary red robes and not wedding gowns. They didn't wear red veils either, revealing their entire faces. The female ghosts didn't look ugly and were even somewhat beautiful. However, their faces were pale, making them appear ghastly. Their fingernails were long and sharp, and although they didn't look ugly, they were extremely terrifying. There are wolves in front and tigers behind. We are really in big trouble this time. Li Xian lamented loudly. His immortal god of combat life providence, combined with the invincible connate divine art, made him nearly immortal unless he was directly killed. But even so, such a crazy battle was a huge burden on him. Zhou Wen also lamented inwardly. The white-robed ghosts had black-armored, white-haired ghosts. Even Ensheng might not be able to defeat them, so they definitely couldn't escape in that direction. However, the red-clothed female ghosts weren't to be trifled with. Furthermore, who knew what else was inside the dimensional zone? Perhaps there were groups of black-armored, white-haired ghosts inside. If they were to rush in, they would only die. Instantly, the four of them were in a dilemma. They couldn't advance or retreat, so all they could do was fight the white-robed ghosts with all their might. However, it wasn't a solution to continue fighting like this. Anyone would tire out. The Tao body could restore Zhou Wen's primordial energy, but it was impossible for it to completely restore his stamina. Zhou Wen was already beginning to feel exhausted, and he didn't know how long he could last. Li Xian and Ah Lai's situation wasn't much better. Their stamina expenditure wasn't any less than Zhou Wen's. Zhang Yuji was the worst. She was barely able to fight while limping. She had also suffered quite a number of injuries. If it wasn't for Zhou Wen, Li Xian, and Alai occasionally taking care of her, she would probably have been killed by the ghosts on the way. This isn't a solution. Instead of dying in such a sullen manner, why don't we rush back and kill the black-armored, white-haired ghost with Brother Sheng? If we succeed, we can successfully escape. Even if we don't succeed, we can at most die in battle. It's better than being exhausted to death here, Li Xian said. Zhou Wen scanned his surroundings and suddenly said, "Don't go back yet. Let's get closer to the yin-yang boundary stone." With that said, Zhou Wen had already used the Grand Yin Wind to open up a path and rush towards the red-robed female ghosts. However, his Grand Yin Wind was only used to fan the white-robed ghosts away. He didn't attack the red-robed female ghosts. Although they didn't know what Zhou Wen was up to, Li Xian and Alai didn't hesitate to follow him. Soon, they arrived in front of the boundary stone. At that moment, they discovered a strange scene. The red-robed female ghosts stood behind the boundary stone, but none of them rushed out. As for the white-robed ghosts, they seemed to have some reservations. None of them approached the yin-yang boundary stone. They gathered in groups on the other side of the boundary stone and roared at Zhou Wen and company. The white-robed ghosts and the red-robed female ghosts looked at each other across the boundary stone. The ghosts on both sides were eyeing Zhou Wen and company covetously, but none of them rushed forward. This left Zhou Wen and company, who were trapped behind the boundary stone, alarmed and thankful. After fighting for so long, the four of them were extremely exhausted. The four of them leaned closely against the yin-yang boundary stone, but they couldn't rest. The white-robed ghosts and red-robed female ghosts were less than a meter away from them. The terrifying ghost claws that were brandishing seemed to be able to pierce holes in their bodies at any moment. "Old Zhou, are we saved now?" Li Xian said with a sullen expression as he looked at the ghost claws that were waving in front of him. "The food and drinks are all in the car. We are trapped here. Even if these ghosts don't harm us, we won't be able to live for long. Don't you think we're saved?" Zhou Wen sized up the yin-yang boundary stone, hoping to see something. Perhaps he could find a way out. However, it was eerie and terrifying inside. Fog filled the air, making it impossible to see what was inside. Suddenly, the sound of the collision in the distance stopped. The night suddenly fell silent, making Zhou Wen and company feel their hearts in their throats. Did Brother Sheng win? Li Xian swallowed his saliva with great difficulty. If Sheng hadn't won, he would probably have been harmed by the black-armored, white-haired ghost. It would have been difficult for them to escape death. As they stared at the path they had come from, it didn't take long for Zhou Wen and company's expressions to turn abnormally nasty. They saw the black-armored, white-haired ghost fly over. His white hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a devil. Chapter 230. Let's charge in. When Zhou Wen saw the black-armored, white-haired ghost charging over, he gritted his teeth and got up to charge into the yin-yang boundary stone. The Grand Yin Wind opened up a path as the group of red-dressed female ghosts were sent flying dozens of meters away. Li Xian and company also knew that facing the black-armored, white-haired ghost was a dead end. Without any hesitation, they followed Zhou Wen into the yin-yang boundary stone. The Grand Yin Wind sent dozens of female ghosts flying dozens of meters away. However, there were just too many of them. Soon, even more of them surrounded them. Zhou Wen waved his fan again, sending the female ghost in front of him flying as he ran for his life with the three of them. Not long after the four of them ran in, the black-armored, white-haired ghost rushed to the yin-yang boundary stone. However, he didn't hesitate like the white-dressed ghosts. He directly charged in. The moment he entered, the red-dressed female ghosts seemed to explode. All of them screamed as their hair stood on end. They charged at the black-armored, white-haired ghost fearlessly. When Zhou Wen and company saw this situation, they were pleasantly surprised. Holy **T, ghosts fighting ghosts. Li Xian cried out in pleasant surprise. However, Their pleasant surprise didn't last long. The group of red-dressed female ghosts pounced at the black-armored, white-haired ghost, but the black aura on the black-armored, white-haired ghost's body exploded like a shockwave. Immediately, all the red-dressed female ghosts in a radius of more than 10 meters were scared out of their wits. The black-armored, white-haired ghost didn't even look at the red-dressed female ghosts as he flew through the air and chased after Zhou Wan and company. The four of them felt their hearts turn cold. The black-armored, white-haired ghost could instantly kill a group of red-dressed female ghosts without even moving his hand. Such strength was a calamity for them. Although the red-clothed female ghosts still charged forward fearlessly, they were useless against the black-armored, white-haired ghost. When they were hit by the black gas on his body, they dissipated, leaving behind some ghost crystals that fell to the ground. The four of them had only run about 100 meters when the black-armored, white-haired ghost had already caught up to them. He extended his ghastly claws and swiped at Zhou Wan. The black gas condensed into the shape of a ghastly claw. Across a distance of more than 10 meters, it instantly appeared in front of Zhou Wan, about to grab him. Zhou Wan held the banana fan and fanned it at the black, ghastly claw. The grandine wind blew over and blew away all the black gas. However, before Zhou Wan and company could rejoice, the black-armored, white-haired ghost struck out again. A huge, ghastly hand condensed from black gas grabbed at Zhou Wan. It was so fast that it was impossible to dodge. Having just used the grandine wind, Zhou Wan's primordial energy had yet to recover, so he couldn't use it again. All he could do was draw his bamboo blade and slash at the black, ghastly hand. Ghost Bride and Truth Listener attacked the black, ghastly claw at the same time. The Yin Wind claw and the golden beam on Truth Listener's claw collided with the black, ghastly claw almost simultaneously. Bang! The black gas ghost claw was forcefully shattered by the human and two pets' attacks, but Zhou Wan felt his hands go numb. The primordial energy in his body nearly dissipated. Split up and run. Zhou Wan could tell that the black-armored, white-haired ghost's target was him, so he immediately rushed in another direction. Indeed, the black-armored, white-haired ghost chased after him without any hesitation. The red-dressed female ghosts that approached him were dispersed by him, as though a demon king had descended. Zhou Wan felt even worse than the black-armored, white-haired ghost. He had used the Grand Yin Wind to blow away the red-dressed female ghosts in front of him, so he had no way of dealing with the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Furthermore, the black-armored, white-haired ghost was clearly much faster than him. In the blink of an eye, he had caught up to him. As though he knew that the black, ghastly claw was useless against Zhou Wan, the black-armored, white-haired ghost used his hand to grab Zhou Wan. Like a phantom, he was unbelievably fast. Zhou Wan switched his primordial energy art to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra and held the bamboo blade to use transcendent flying immortal. Immediately, the sky flashed as Zhou Wan's speed suddenly increased. Like a bolt of lightning, he slashed at the black-armored, white-haired ghost's body. Clang! 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 The sound of metal clashing rang incessantly as the extremely sharp bamboo blade slashed at the black-armored, white-haired ghost's black armor. It was unknown what the armor was made of, but it looked like black jade. When the bamboo blade struck it, it only left white marks on it. It failed to slice through the armor. The black-armored, white-haired ghost floated in midair and blocked Zhou Wan's transcendent flying immortal without even raising his palm. The moment transcendent flying immortal ended, the black-armored, white-haired ghost extended his hand and instantly appeared in front of Zhou Wan, about to grab his neck. The difference in speed was too great, so Zhou Wan didn't even have a chance to dodge. Truth Listener appeared on Zhou Wan's shoulder as its claws shimmered with golden light. It seemed to carry some mysterious hex as it faced the black-armored, white-haired ghost's palm. Bam! The black-armored, white-haired ghost's palm had an additional golden mark, making him retract his hand as though he had been pricked by a needle. As for Truth Listener, it was sent flying as it somersaulted a few times in the air before landing on the head of a red-dressed female ghost. It scared the red-dressed female ghost so much that she didn't dare move. Truth Listener didn't look injured as it bared its teeth at the black-armored, white-haired ghost. It leaped up again and charged at the black-armored, white-haired ghost. The black-armored, white-haired ghost shook his palm, and the golden flame-like mark on his palm was immediately drowned by the black gas. Then he shot out a black gas that immediately sent Truth Listener flying. Truth Listener was only at the legendary stage, so it wasn't injured after suffering 2 strikes from the black-armored, white-haired ghost. However, it couldn't do a thing to the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Before it could reach him, it was sent flying by the ghost hand condensed from the black gas. Zhou was somewhat depressed. If Truth Listener could advance to the epic stage, it should be able to fight the black-armored, white-haired ghost or even suppress it. Now, it could only take a beating. The black-armored, white-haired ghost seemed to know that Truth Listener was the nemesis of ghosts and that it was difficult to kill it. Therefore, after sending Truth Listener flying, it ignored it and appeared in front of Zhou with a flash. Zhou was already prepared as he fanned at him. The grand wind blew the black-armored, white-haired ghost back more than 100 feet. However, just as he retreated, the white-haired ghost's figure flashed again and appeared in front of Zhou. He was so fast that Zhou didn't have time to recover his primordial energy. Truth Listener and Banana Fairy were too late to save him. All Zhou could do was use Ghost Bride, but she seemed to be extremely afraid of the black-armored, white-haired ghost. She didn't dare rush forward to help Zhou. Zhou immediately cursed inwardly. Typical companion beasts were absolutely obedient. Even if they were ordered to commit suicide, they wouldn't hesitate. Only mythical pets like Truth Listener and Banana Fairy had a certain level of self-consciousness. He never expected Ghost Bride to have self-consciousness and no fear. However, with Ghost Bride's hesitation, Zhou immediately fell into danger. The black-armored, white-haired ghost palm was about to grab Zhou's neck. Chapter 231. The chick that had been standing on Zhou's shoulder suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a golden flame at the black-armored, white-haired ghost's palm. When the golden flame touched the white-haired ghost's palm, it burned like a spark meeting gasoline. The ghost hand turned into a flaming hand. Good bird. Zhou was overjoyed as he praised it before turning around to continue fleeing. Although the chick was magical, it had just been born. Its level was too low, so no matter how powerful its flames were, it was probably unable to burn the black-armored, white-haired ghost to death. Indeed, black gas surged from the black-armored, white-haired ghost's body, extinguishing the golden flames on his palm. The charred palm also rapidly recovered in the black gas. His eyes were filled with anger as he chased after them again. What a lingering ghost! Zhou suddenly felt that sometimes he couldn't help but believe in superstitions. Ever since he had Bamboo Blade, his luck had indeed worsened. On this return journey, a new dimensional zone had appeared out of thin air. There was even a breakout creature. They were unlucky enough to encounter it. Truth Listener and Banana Fairy came to help Zhou fend off the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Zhou also pushed Dragon Gate Fairy skill to its limits, hoping to escape the calamity. However, the black-armored, white-haired ghost was extremely intelligent. He already knew that Truth Listener and Banana Fairy's weakness was that their levels weren't high. He ignored them and sent them flying as he targeted Zhou. Zhou kept ordering Ghost Bride to fight. Her body trembled as she slowly floated towards the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Clearly, she was extremely terrified. Zhou dodged a few times in midair like an eagle, but he still failed to dodge the black-armored, white-haired ghost palm, just as he was about to be grabbed by the neck. Looking at his furious eyes, Zhou had no doubt that he would snap his neck. After I return, I'll definitely game at home quietly. I won't come out no matter what. With this thought in mind, Zhou prepared to activate the Sigh of the King's power. Although the Sigh of the King was powerful, his body couldn't withstand such a powerful force. He didn't know if it was effective against the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Now he was risking his life by using it. If he failed, he could only wait for death. The white-haired ghost dodged the flames spewed out by the chick. Just as he was about to grab Zhou Wen, a bolt of lightning suddenly descended from the sky and struck the white-haired ghost's head. Li Xian had cleaved down with the Thunder God sword. The white-haired ghost frowned slightly as he moved his body to the side. With a flip of his hand, a ghostly aura shot out, sending Li Xian flying with his sword. Bang! Li Xian's body slammed into the stone ground, shattering it into pieces. Li Xian. Zhou Wen slashed at the white-haired ghost as he shouted. Li Xian did a carp flip and jumped up from the rubble. He dragged the Thunder God sword and charged at the white-haired ghost again. The white-haired ghost's figure flashed as he grabbed the bamboo blade with one hand and the Thunder God's sword with the other. With a violent swing, he smashed Zhou Wen and Li Xian to the ground. Rubble splattered as Zhou Wen felt his face deform from the impact. Perhaps his bones had fractured as blood gushed out of his nose. Li Xian's situation wasn't much better. His entire body was smashed into the stone ground. The white-haired ghost descended and was about to step on their heads. Bang! A lie charged over and kicked the white-haired ghost in the chest, sending him flying back a distance. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen communicated with the Sai of the King. In an instant, the strange power erupted like a volcano eruption. A beam of light descended on Zhou Wen. Li Xian and company couldn't see the figure, but Zhou Wen could sense that it was a woman, but he couldn't see it clearly. A terrifying power instantly filled Zhou Wen's body, making him feel like he could destroy everything. He didn't dare waste any more time. The Sai of the King's power would only grow stronger. If he delayed too long, the power might cause his body to explode. Zhou Wen had to finish off the Ghost King before his body couldn't take it. Seeing the Ghost King charge at him again, Zhou Wen didn't hesitate to use Transcendent Flying Immortal. His body transformed into a bolt of lightning as he charged at the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Crack! The bamboo blade slashed at the Ghost King's black armor again, leaving a deep mark on it. The black gas inside immediately surged out like a fountain. The black-armored, white-haired ghost's expression changed as his figure flashed like a ghost, vanishing into thin air. Transcendent Flying Immortal's subsequent attacks immediately lost their target and missed. When the black-armored, white-haired ghost appeared again, he was already dozens of meters away. There was no trace of him in between, as though he had teleported. Zhou Wen felt the power in his body become more and more violent. Without any hesitation, he used Transcendent Flying Immortal again. Originally, with his primordial energy, he could only use Transcendent Flying Immortal once before being drained. However, with the power of the Sai of the King, Zhou Wen felt that he could use Transcendent Flying Immortal countless times. He didn't need to worry about expending too much primordial energy, as though he had infinite primordial energy in his body. This feeling excited and worried Zhou Wen. Now, he was like a baby brandishing a sledgehammer. He could injure himself at any moment due to his lack of strength. His strength was insufficient to control the Sai of the King. Transcendent Flying Immortal instantly streaked across the sky and arrived in front of the black-armored, white-haired ghost. However, the black-armored, white-haired ghost's figure flashed and vanished once again. It made Zhou Wen lose track of his aura and unable to lock onto him. His Transcendent Flying Immortal missed again. Zhou Wen's expression changed slightly. His body was already showing signs of overloading. If he couldn't quickly finish off the white-haired ghost, he would probably self-destruct. However, the white-haired ghost had a skill similar to teleportation. No matter how strong or fast he was, it was useless if he couldn't touch the white-haired ghost. When the white-haired ghost appeared again, Li Xian charged forward and slashed at the white-haired ghost's head with the Thunder God sword. The white-haired ghost was somewhat afraid of Zhou Wen's strength, but he thought nothing of Li Xian. With a slight flash, he dodged Li Xian's Thunder God sword and pressed Li Xian's head to the ground. Bam! Rubble flew as Li Xian's head slammed into the stone ground, leaving a huge crater. Blood splattered along with the rubble. Zhou was alarmed. This strike had probably crushed Li Xian's head. However, just as the white-haired ghost was about to retract his palm, Li Xian suddenly grabbed his arm with both hands. He leaped up and wrapped himself around the white-haired ghost's body as he shouted at Zhou, "One, kill him." Chapter 232. Zhou didn't hesitate as he instantly traversed more than 10 meters with transcendent flying immortal. The bamboo blade slashed at the white-haired ghost like lightning. Black gas erupted from the white-haired ghost's body, causing Li Xian to spit out blood. Countless bones in his body had been broken, but he refused to let go. The white-haired ghost couldn't shake Li Xian off, so he wanted to teleport with Li Xian. However, Ali, who had rushed over, grabbed his leg. Teleporting with the two of them clearly slowed down a lot, allowing Zhou to discover the secret of his teleportation. It wasn't teleportation at all. It was just a fast movement technique. However, because it was so fast, it looked like teleportation. Li Xian had risked his life to hold him back, and with Ali holding him back, his movement speed immediately slowed down, allowing Zhou to see the white-haired ghost trajectory clearly. Transcendent flying immortal moved like lightning as it crisscrossed and slashed at the black-armored, white-haired ghost. The extremely hard armor was sliced apart like tofu by Zhou's unbearable strength, leaving one crack after another. Large amounts of black smoke spewed out from the cracks in the armor as his body was about to be torn apart. However, a strange scene appeared at that moment. The black-armored, white-haired ghost let out a long roar as a ghost domain enveloped the entire land. The surrounding white-robed ghosts and red-robed female ghosts turned into wisps of ghostly aura that flowed towards the black-armored, white-haired ghost. As there were too many ghosts around him, large amounts of ghostly aura surged into his body and quickly replenished the damage to his body. The armor that was about to collapse actually stabilized. Zhou cursed inwardly. His body was almost at its limit. If this strike couldn't kill the black-armored, white-haired ghost, he could use transcendent flying immortal again. Although he had a higher chance of killing the black-armored, white-haired ghost, his body probably couldn't withstand it. He would probably self-destruct midway through using transcendent flying immortal. Just as Zhou felt that something was amiss, Ghost Bride let out a scream as her body emitted a red halo. In the black-armored, white-haired ghost domain, her ghostly aura was also sucked away, preventing her from escaping. Finally, she unleashed all her potential. Although it was said to be all his potential, there was only one talent skill that he had never used. It was also the Jinx's husband skill that he had no idea how to use. When the red halo radiated out, Zhou and company didn't feel anything when they were illuminated by the red light. Only the black-armored, white-haired ghost felt the ghostly aura in his body turn chaotic when he was illuminated by the red light. The ghostly aura that he had absorbed to repair his body began to rampage. Not only did it stop repairing his body, but it also affected his ghostly aura. Zhou released all his strength, and the remaining half of transcendent flying immortal was even more terrifying. It transformed into bolts of lightning that crisscrossed the black-armored, white-haired ghost. Bang! The black-armored, white-haired ghost body was sliced apart as his black armor shattered into pieces. The ghostly aura in his body also exploded, sending Li Xian and Ali flying. Zhou retracted the power of the Sigh of the King, and his body landed on the ground. He couldn't stand steadily and fell to the ground. His skin was red, a result of his blood vessels and meridians exploding. Under the immense pressure, all his bones were about to crack. If he had been any later, he would have been killed by his life providence without the black-armored, white-haired ghost needing to take action. Li Xian, Ali, are you all right? Zhou struggled to stand up, but he couldn't. All his bones were cracked, and the pain was unbearable even if he didn't move. It was excruciating to move. I'm fine. Li Xian's condition isn't too good. Ali helped Li Xian up from the rubble on the other side. I won't die. Li Xian's body was covered in blood, making him look like a bloody man. Even his face couldn't be distinguished. It was extremely terrifying. Even with his powerful recovery ability, he didn't look much better. It was obvious how serious his injuries were. The few of them had just said a few words when their faces became quite ugly. They almost had no ability to fight anymore, and the red-clothed female ghosts around them surrounded them. Each of them bared their fangs and brandished their claws, as if they wanted to swallow them alive. If it was before, Zhou, Wen, and company wouldn't have been afraid of the red-dressed female ghosts. No matter how many red-dressed female ghosts blocked their path, they could still charge out. But now, out of the 4 of them, 3.5 were equivalent to trash. They no longer had the ability to fight. Most importantly, they didn't even have the ability to escape. All they could do was wait for death. I never expected that I, Li Xian, would die at the hands of a female ghost. Forget it. Dying at the hands of a beautiful female ghost is better than being eaten by those ugly beasts. Li Xian also knew that it would be difficult for him to survive today, but he didn't feel any fear. He raised his head and said to Zhou, Wen, "Old Zhou, I'm afraid you and I will be going to hell. When we reach hell, you have to remember to recognize me. Don't forget me. When the time comes, we'll wreak havoc in hell." All right. Zhou Wen also knew that he wouldn't survive this time, as he nodded in agreement. However, Li sighed softly. "Unfortunately, I still haven't recalled the past." Zhang Yuji dragged her injured leg all the way to Zhou Wen and company. She had already collapsed to the ground, unable to hold on any longer. Only Zhou Wen's pets were still fighting, but they couldn't withstand the tidal wave of red-dressed female ghosts. Seeing that the red-dressed female ghosts had found an opening to pounce at them, the few of them felt despair. Suddenly, a beam of light flashed as the heads of the surrounding red-dressed female ghosts flew into the air. At the same time, a figure appeared in front of them. "Brother Shang, you aren't dead?" Li Xian was overjoyed when he saw the person. It was Shang. However, when he saw Shang's appearance, Li Xian's expression turned odd. He saw that Shang's clothes were neat and his shirt was white. Even his hairstyle was meticulous without any mess. There was even a smile on his face. He didn't look like he had just experienced an intense battle. Furthermore, it was clearly very difficult for him to kill the ghosts previously, but with this strike he had beheaded dozens of red-dressed female ghosts. This was clearly different from his previous performance. "Don't tell me you're scamming us?" Li Xian asked Shang with widened eyes. Zhou Wen and company also looked at Shang, but Shang said with a smile, "Didn't I tell you before that I would take you to a few dimensional zones for training? This Yin-Yang ghost world that just appeared is one of them. I originally thought of saving you when you were in a life-and-death situation, but I never expected you to slay the Ghost King. Well done. Don't you feel a sense of accomplishment?" Li Xian didn't say a word as he gave Shang a middle finger. He suddenly understood why many people in Luoyang called Shang the devil's adjutant in private. Shang wasn't angry. He brandished the dagger in his hand and casually killed the red-dressed female ghosts, causing them to flee in fear, not daring to pounce at him again. Shang walked to the spot where the Ghost King had died and picked up something. He stuffed it into Zhou Wen's hand. "Young Master One, this is your spoils of war. It's very memorable. The experience gained from life and death is incomparable to any wealth." Zhou Wen didn't have the strength to speak. He took the primordial energy skill crystal that emitted a black gas and gave Shang a middle finger. Chapter 233. I should have thought of it long ago. With Shang's meticulousness, why would he take us on such a dangerous path? Furthermore, only with him leading the way can we get here. Zhou Wen shook his head slightly. While he was glad that Shang wasn't an enemy, he was also vigilant. This time, Shang wasn't their enemy, but if the enemy were to treat them in such a manner, how were they to deal with it? Zhou Wen could only warn himself to be more careful in the future. However, Zhou Wen didn't become distrustful of anyone because of this matter. At the very least, at the brink of life and death, Li Xian and Li had chosen to fight with him instead of fleeing separately. Between trust and distrust, Zhou knew that he needed to find a balance. There was one thing Sheng was right about. This kind of battle, where one faced the threat of death, left a deeper impression on him than gaming. Some things were indeed difficult to comprehend unless they were on the brink of life and death. Death in-game ultimately couldn't touch the deepest thread in one's heart. On the way back, Zhou played with the essence energy skill crystal of the Ghost King in his hand. And Sheng told Zhou that the yin-yang world had only appeared recently. Furthermore, Ghost Kings were very difficult to kill. In fact, they were very rare and couldn't be encountered every time. Therefore, up to now, there were very few essence energy skill crystals dropped by Ghost Kings. The one in Zhou's hand was the first one, and Sheng didn't know what essence energy skill the Ghost King would drop. And Sheng also said that he had watched Zhou and company's entire battle process. If it wasn't for the Ghost Bride's special ability restricting the Ghost King, the outcome might have been completely different. The Ghost Bride's restriction on the Ghost King was too great. It could be said to be a powerful weapon against it. If Zhou had the interest and time, he could use the Ghost Bride to earn money here in the future. There would definitely be people who wanted to hire Zhou's Ghost Bride. This was the first time Sheng knew of the Ghost Bride's abilities. In fact, he had never seen one before. This was also the first time he had seen one. The yin-yang ghost world had just been discovered not long ago. All Sheng knew was the red-dressed female ghost, the white-dressed female ghost, and the Ghost King. However, Sheng had the ability to restrain ghost-type dimensional creatures. Therefore, even if two Ghost Kings appeared at the same time, he was confident that he could protect Zhou, and company. This was why he had brought them here to have a taste of life and death. At the same time, he wanted Zhou to witness a ghost-type dimensional creature so that he wouldn't be unprepared when he faced them in the future. What primordial energy skill could it be? Zhou didn't directly absorb it. This was an epic primordial energy skill crystal. It was too dangerous to absorb it directly. Zhou planned on absorbing it in-game after returning to school. Nothing happened on the way, and Sheng successfully sent them back to Luoyang. When they passed by East Capital, Zhang Yuji got off the bus and thanked them. They even added each other as friends. Was the journey smooth? And Tianzhua asked casually as he read some documents in the military camp. It went smoothly, and Sheng answered. As long as it goes smoothly. And Tianzhua frowned slightly and continued to read the document. However, after waiting for a while, he still didn't hear Sheng speak. And Tianzhua looked up at Sheng and asked, "Don't you have anything to say? Overseer, do you want to know about me? Or do you want to know about Zhou? If you want to know about me, you can rest assured. I've been very safe along the way." And Sheng said with a smile, "You're getting more and more impudent." And Tianzhua's face darkened as he reprimanded Sheng. Then he continued, "I heard that he caused quite a bit of trouble in Holy City. I'm afraid that he will cause trouble for our family. In terms of causing trouble, he's definitely inferior to you, Overseer. Besides, even if he causes trouble, it's the family that causes trouble for him. Don't you think so?" And Sheng said with a blink, "Ah, Sheng, have you been living too comfortably recently? Do you want to go to the front lines to train?" And Tianzhua put down the document in his hand and glared at Sheng. "Overseer, don't be angry. I'm just afraid that I'll say something I shouldn't and make you unhappy." And Sheng hurriedly said weakly, "I'm very unhappy now." And Tianzhua said with a cold expression. And Sheng wasn't afraid. He blinked and said, "All right, I'll say it then. Overseer, if you don't want to hear it, don't be angry. Do you believe that I'll throw you to Chess Mountain to guard the mountain pass now?" And Tianzhua said, "If I were to guard the mountain pass, who else would know your preferences like me? They don't even know what kind of tea you like to drink and how hot the water is. I'm afraid you won't be used to it." And Sheng smiled as he brewed tea for Tianzhua. "Are you relying on this to think that I don't dare to teach you a lesson? Do you believe that I'll find a more capable adjutant to replace you tomorrow and throw you to guard the mountain pass?" With that said, and Tianzhua laughed, "I do." And Sheng placed the teacup in front of Tianzhua and said seriously, "Overseer, you should know about Zhou's situation in Holy City." "What do you want to ask?" "Your evaluation of him." And Tianzua said slowly as he drank a mouthful of tea. I'll say it again. I'm afraid you won't be happy if I say it. And Shang said, Speak. And Tianzua only said one word. I think he's stronger than you were back then, and Shang said. And Tianzua immediately put down his teacup and glared fiercely at Shang. Don't use those exaggerated words. No matter how well you praise him, I won't fancy him. And Shang said, You said you wouldn't be angry. If you want to hear lies, I'll say it according to your wishes. That punk, Zhou Wen, is extremely weak. He was able to wipe out the 6 families and defeat Lance, not because he's strong, but because the kids from the 6 families are too disappointing. Lance doesn't live up to his reputation. He was able to kill the Ghost King because he had dogsh asterisk T luck. Ah Shang, you seem to think highly of him? And Tianzua narrowed his eyes and asked Shang. I just feel that Zhou Wen is just like what old Mr. Ouyang said. He's someone who can be entrusted. And Shang said seriously. Is that so? I don't think so. And Tianzua said indifferently as he picked up the document again. And Shang knew Tianzua's habits. Seeing him pick up the document, he didn't say anything else. All he did was sigh inwardly. And Tianzua's temper was the same as Zhou Wen's. Once he made up his mind, it was useless no matter what anyone said. Now, Shang only hoped that the two of them wouldn't become enemies in the future. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. After Zhou Wen returned to his dorm, he took a picture of the Ghost King's primordial energy skill crystal with his mysterious phone, but he received a notification that his stats were insufficient. Zhou Wen took a look and realized that the Ghost King crystal was the same as the mutated fairy crystal. It had stat points and primordial energy art requirements. The stat point requirement was the same as Transcendent Flying Immortal 21 speed. However, the primordial energy art requirement was an E-type primordial energy art. Of the few primordial energy arts that Zhou Wen was proficient in, the Tao Sutra was relatively neutral. The ancient Sovereign Sutra was clearly biased towards Yang. A Buddhist-type primordial energy art, like the Small Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, was definitely not E-type. As for the First Order of Chaos, it had yet to advance to the legendary stage. All that was left was the God-Fiend era. Zhou Wen didn't have much confidence switching his primordial energy art to the God-Fiend era. He only wanted to give it a try. After all, the God-Fiend era didn't appear too E-type. At most, it could only be considered more feminine. Surprisingly, after switching to the God-Fiend era, the mysterious phone successfully captured the Ghost King crystal in-game and successfully absorbed and refined it. Absorbed Ghost King crystal. Attained primordial energy skill, Ghost steps. I just want a game in peace. I just want a game in peace. Chapter 234. Ghost Steps, a ghostly movement technique with unfathomable abilities. Zhou Wen experimented with Ghost Steps and realized that it was a skill similar to Ghost King's teleportation. However, Ghost Steps wasn't true teleportation. Instead, it was an instant burst of extraordinary speed. Due to the explosive and sudden nature of the speed, it looked like it had vanished. Previously, with Li Xian and Al Lai holding back Ghost King's speed was greatly reduced when he used Ghost Steps. This allowed Zhou Wen to see his trajectory. Although it wasn't true teleportation, it was enough to surprise him. The speed that Ghost Steps produced in an instant was just too astonishing. Now that Zhou Wen was only at the legendary stage, the speed he could produce with Ghost Steps could even exceed some epic stages. However, Ghost Steps was similar to Transcendent Flying Immortal. They both required relatively high primordial energy. Even Ghost King himself couldn't use Ghost Steps continuously. It was the same for Zhou Wen. When he switched to his Tao body, he could use it at a higher frequency. Ordinary primordial energy arts couldn't sustain the expenditure of Ghost Steps. If I can maintain the Psi of the King state, with infinite Ghost Steps and infinite Transcendent Flying Immortal, I'm afraid no one at the same level can withstand such a terrifying attack. What a pity. Although Zhou Wen had such thoughts, he knew that it was impossible to realize them in a short period of time. The next morning, Zhou Wen brought some gifts to meet Wang Mingyuan and his seniors. He also asked Wang Mingyuan about the ivory pendant. Back at the Sun God Temple, the ivory pendant was able to emit a chill to withstand the sun's flames. It was clearly extraordinary. Wang Mingyuan said casually, "That's not ivory. It's a type of tooth I picked up in Dragon's Well. As for what creature's tooth it is, it's still hard to say. I carved that tooth into 4 pendants. The 4 of you can have one each as a memento." Wang Mingyuan didn't care about these worldly possessions. Although he knew that the tooth pendants had magical effects, he didn't take it to heart. Zhou then asked for some questions regarding combat techniques, which Wang Mingyuan answered casually. It's not that fighting routines can't be used, but the average person's reaction can't reach the level of thinking in battle. Therefore, most fighting routines are rigid and not impromptu changes. Rigid routines are naturally easy to crack, so it's fine to use them appropriately. Unless your thinking level can reach the computing level of a supercomputer and be able to react almost seamlessly, it can only be used as a support. Don't deliberately pursue routines. That was what Wang Mingyuan told him after Zhou when asked about Lance's fighting techniques. Zhou naturally couldn't do it to that extent, so he chose to take a more normal path. It was a path that allowed him to fuse what was real and what wasn't. As they advanced and retreated, they used the path of illusion and reality to compete with the enemy in terms of mental and physical abilities. Although this gave the enemy time to think, they also had time to think. It all depended on whose ability was better. Zhou studied with Wang Mingyuan, while Zhong Zia and Qin Yin stayed in the laboratory every day. Hui Haifeng often went out, so he was the most active among Wang Mingyuan's disciples. The more Zhou learned from Wang Mingyuan, the more he felt that Wang Mingyuan's knowledge was unfathomable. Furthermore, he had a gentle personality. He didn't require one to learn anything, nor would he specify a certain path. He was like a lamp that illuminated the world ahead. As for which path one wanted to take, it was up to one to choose. The summer was scorching, and the cicadas' cries made the summer seem even hotter. Wang Mingyuan brought the 4 of them to a classroom and borrowed projection equipment. He explained some of the more advanced theoretical knowledge and the use of equipment to Zhou and company. Wang Mingyuan wasn't only a researcher of dimensional powers, but he also had deep attainments in science. Zhou wasn't too interested in science and technology. He sat at the back and quietly gamed. Hui Haifeng listened very seriously. It was unknown if he was really interested or if he had other plans. Zhong Zia was sleeping on the table, but the cicadas' cries made him very irritated. He couldn't fall asleep no matter what. He lay there weakly, looking at the blackboard with listless eyes. Jiang Yin propped up his cheek with one hand and looked out the window, as though he was looking at the cicadas on the tree outside with great interest. Wang Fei walked to the door and looked at the situation in the classroom through the crack. She wanted to know how Zhou was doing with Wang Mingyuan. She couldn't help but feel depressed as she thought to herself, Uncle Mingyuan's personality is too good. He has spoiled these fellows. How can he let them be like this? Although she had such thoughts, Wang Fei didn't enter to say anything. Firstly, this was Wang Mingyuan's class. She had to respect him. Secondly, Wang Fei knew that lecturing a fellow like Zhou was useless. Furthermore, Wang Fei had already heard of what Zhou had done in Holy City. Although the 6 families had sealed off the news, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Furthermore, Wang Fei was Ouyang Lan's best friend. She had long learned from Ouyang Lan that Ouyang Lan's boastful tone made Wang Fei despise her. Forget it. It's very difficult for this fellow to find an opponent among his peers. It's probably very difficult to find a good way to motivate him to continue working hard. I'll just let him be smug for a while. Wang Fei thought for a moment and decided to ignore Zhou for the time being. After all, he was only a freshman. Compared to the other students, Zhou improvement was just too fast. However, after Wang Fei returned, she still increased the difficulty of the homework missions, making her students complain incessantly. The students never expected that their homework assignments would be increased because of Zhou. Zhou, are you interested in hunting dimensional creatures in Dragon Gate Grotto? Wang Lu walked out of the building with the baby tiger and happened to see Zhou when returning from class. She went forward to greet him. "I have something to do recently." "I'm afraid I don't have the time," Zhou said. "What else can you have to do? Isn't it just gaming?" Wang Lu curled her lips, very displeased with Zhou Wen's perfunctory reply. "That's right. There's a game stage that I can't get past. I want to break through as soon as possible," Zhou said with a nod. With ghost steps and transcendent flying immortal, Zhou planned on attempting to kill the golden flying ant again or see what was inside the white cocoon. Since he couldn't raise his primordial energy and constitution to 21 points, Zhou could only set his goal there. Gaming geek. Wang Lu walked away with puffed cheeks. Zhou returned to his room and switched on his phone. He chose to enter Ant Nest and stormed towards Ant City. Chapter 235. When the blood-colored avatar arrived in Ant City again, it wasn't as cowardly as before. Against the ant tide, Zhou pets could easily finish them off without him needing to do anything. After clearing all the ordinary ants, Zhou led his pets to the ant nest at the highest point. The golden flying ant rushed out. Its speed was extremely fast, even faster than the Ghost King that didn't use ghost steps. Its slender feet were like blades as they emitted terrifying golden beams of light. Zhou made the Saber Shield Knight charge ahead and use his shield to block the golden beam of light, but he could only block it once. Although he had used a shield primordial energy skill, cracks still appeared on the shield. If he were to do it again, the shield would definitely be scrapped. The silver-winged flying ant attacked from the side, but it was instantly killed by the beam shot out from the golden flying ant's eyes. Its wings and body were penetrated. Truth Listener attacked from the side and was struck by the golden beam of light. It immediately retreated with a tragic cry. Its stats couldn't restrain the golden flying ant's strength, so it wasn't as powerful as it was against the Ghost King. Wounds appeared on its fur. However, this was already considered very strong. Ordinary legendary creatures would probably have been instantly killed. Zhou held the banana fan and fanned it at the golden flying ant, immediately sending it flying. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhou used Dragon Gate Fairy skill and charged at the white cocoon. It was still too difficult for him to kill the golden flying ant alone, so Zhou decided to see what was inside the white cocoon. The golden flying ant was extremely fast as it instantly charged back. Its eyes spewed out a golden beam of light in a bid to kill Zhou when on the spot. Zhou stepped on the wall of the nest and vanished the next second, leaving the golden flying ant stunned. When Zhou appeared again, he was already in front of the white cocoon. He struck it with his palm in a bid to blast it open. However, this strike that was condensed with the great strength Vajra palm made Zhou feel as though his palm had struck a spring. After the white cocoon caved in slightly, it immediately bounced up and sent Zhou flying. The golden flying ant flashed past, and the blood-colored avatar that flew back was instantly killed by the golden beam. The game screen went black. My full-powered palm strike actually failed to injure the white cocoon at all? Zhou was somewhat surprised. His curiosity towards the white cocoon deepened. It's a pity that the bamboo blade can't be stored in-game. Otherwise, it would be much easier to use it in-game. Zhou wanted to try again, but the antelope was unhappy. It ran over and bit Zhou's clothes to pull him out. "All right, I got it." Zhou helplessly put away his phone and took the antelope out to eat. While Zhou was gone, he entrusted the antelope to Wang Lu to take care of. Zhou's original plan was to get Wang Lu to send it some fresh vegetables. However, who knew that after Zhou returned, he would go to the college's cafeteria every day to eat steak? "You're a sheep. You eat grass, okay?" Zhou criticized inwardly. At the same time, he was somewhat depressed. He could have just fed it some vegetables without spending much money, but after being fed by Wang Lu for a few days, the fellow wanted to eat steak every meal. If not for the fact that Zhou had robbed quite a number of companion eggs on this trip and was planning to sell them for a good price, he probably wouldn't have been able to afford to rear it. Indeed, one is stained by one's company. I definitely can't let my pet have anything to do with Wong Lu in the future. Zhou subconsciously touched the chick on his shoulder. After eating, Zhou planned on selling all the companion eggs he had. He could also invest in Huang Ji's game with the money. With so many companion eggs, it wouldn't be a problem to sell them for 1 to 2 million. He definitely had the money to invest this time. There was a trading market in the college. Students could buy or sell the companion eggs they had obtained. Zhou scanned the companion eggs he had obtained with his mysterious phone. After seeing their types and stats, he wrote a label on a piece of paper and stuck it on it. Every companion egg indicated its type and price. Nothing else was written. Hence, Zhou began his first career of setting up a stall. When he arrived at the trading market, it was deserted. There were only 2 or 3 kittens. There was no one at all. As most students were at the mortal stage, they couldn't use legendary companion eggs. Furthermore, mortal companion eggs were extremely rare, so typical students wouldn't come here. Those who could come were basically the top students of the school. However, those who could advance to the legendary stage were typically students with good family backgrounds. They typically didn't lack companion eggs, so they wouldn't go through the trouble of selling the companion eggs they obtained. Therefore, Zhou looked at the empty trading market and doubted if he could sell his companion eggs. "Isn't this Zhou? Are you here to buy companion eggs? Come and take a look at my companion eggs. They are all supreme-grade goods." There were only 2 stall owners in the market. When they saw Zhou, one of them, a senior named Liu, immediately had his eyes light up. He was like a wolf that had seen its prey as he nearly pounced forward. The other person who set up the stall was Huang Ji. "Senior, why are you setting up a stall here?" Zhou asked Huang Ji. "I'm short of money," Huang Ji said in embarrassment. "By the way, didn't you say that you went to the Holy Land? Why didn't I see you?" Zhou recalled that Huang Ji had said that he had gone to the Holy Land. But when he went there, Zhou had paid special attention, but he didn't see Huang Ji. "You didn't see me, but I saw you. How impressive." Huang Ji gave him a thumbs up. "I was forced to do so." "Senior, did you gain anything from this trip to the Holy Land?" Zhou asked again. "I did gain something. I obtained a God Power Crystal, but that thing can't be exchanged for money, so I'm still short of money." As Huang Ji spoke, he sized up Zhou and said with a smile, "You seem to have obtained quite a number of companion eggs in the Holy Land. You should be able to sell them for quite a bit, right? Do you plan on investing in my game?" "Once I sell them, I'll immediately invest in your game," Zhou said with certainty. However, he was somewhat puzzled. Huang Ji had actually said that he had obtained a God Power Crystal and knew that Zhou had robbed many companion eggs. That meant that he had likely gone to the Holy Land, but Zhou was puzzled why he hadn't seen him. "Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and set up the stall." Huang Ji's eyes immediately lit up. Zhou set up a stall beside Huang Ji, but the 3 of them sat there in a row. Apart from them, there wasn't a single person to be seen. The 3 of them looked at each other and were momentarily speechless. Bored, Liu glanced at the 4 companion eggs that Zhou had set up. He jumped in fright when he saw them. "Zhou, aren't your markings too fake? Isn't a companion beast like the broken-winged angel only available in the West District? And this one-eyed behemoth is also a specialty of the West District, right? This frost bear is something from the North District, right? We can't see it here at all." Chapter 236. The companion eggs that Zhou had snatched were all legendary companion eggs that the various merchants had carefully prepared. Most of them were specialties of various regions, and there were very few of them. They were considered relatively rare species. Even if one went to the large companion egg stores in Holy City, it would probably be difficult to see so many species from different regions in a single store. "You'll know if it's real after you buy one and give it a try," Zhou said. "It's fine to give it a try, but isn't your price too high?" Liu glanced at Zhou's price. The broken-winged angel cost 188,000. Typical legendary companion eggs could be bought for 10 to 20,000. The rarer ones were only 70 to 80,000. Only excellent grade ones could exceed 100,000. I'm referring to the price on the internet. There's no bargaining, Zhou said. He had checked the price on the internet, but due to the frequent appearance of dimensional zones all over the world, traffic was greatly hindered. The logistics system had become slow and unsafe, and there were serious losses of goods. Therefore, the range of online transactions was gradually shrinking. If he couldn't sell it on campus, Zhou could only try his luck in Luoyang's market. If it really didn't work, he could only sell it to merchants. That way, the price would be very low. Liu smacked his lips. Zhou, I don't have the money to buy this, but I'm afraid you won't be able to sell it even if you sell it here. Why don't we do this? Hand your companion egg over to me to sell. After I sell it, I'll take a 10% commission. How about that? If I can't sell it here, can you sell it if you're in my shoes? Zhou looked at Liu with interest. Liu handed a name card to Zhou. To be honest, I've already been recruited by the Royal Pet Shop. Although I haven't graduated yet, I'm already an official employee of the Royal Pet Shop. As you can see, there's no one here. I'm setting up a stall here according to the company's requirements. It's just a station. If these companion eggs of yours are real, I can use the company's channels to help you sell them. The price will only be high, but the premise is that these companion eggs are real. Unfortunately, most people didn't know about the Holy Land battle, much less what Zhou had done in Holy City. Otherwise, Liu wouldn't have suspected the authenticity of these companion eggs. No need. I'll just sell it for fun. I have nothing to do anyway. Zhou knew that Liu wanted to make a deal without any capital. The risks were all Zhou, but the profits had to be split with Liu. Furthermore, Zhou didn't know how much Liu was willing to pay. However, just from the words Royal Pet Shop, Zhou knew that this fellow was definitely unreliable. Royal Pet Shop and the other 3 pet shops were known as the Federation's 4 scams. They were famous for having low purchase prices and high sales prices. Furthermore, they liked to play tricks in the middle. Since Zhou had nothing to do, he could game while setting up his stall. He wasn't in a rush. How about this? It's not easy to sell these companion eggs anyway. Why don't you pack them up and sell them to me? As long as you can guarantee their authenticity, I'll give you 80,000 each. For 8 is 32, and I'll round it off. How about 300,000? Liu said again. No bargaining, Zhou said as he gamed. Your Frost Bear's price is clearly too high. A typical Frost Bear companion egg is only 70,000 to 80,000. Why did you price it at nearly 200,000? Liu said as he pointed at the Frost Bear companion egg. It's worth it. Zhou's Frost Bear's price was indeed high, but that was because Zhou had seen its stats and knew that it was worth the price. If you do business like this, you won't be able to sell it even if you go to Luoyang's market, much less here. Liu had never seen Zhou do business like this in his life. He decided to wait and see. After Zhou realized the cruel reality, he would lower the price to buy his companion egg. There were very few people in the market. Occasionally, students would come, and most of them were looking for Liu. From the looks of it, his identity as the owner of Royal Pet Shop wasn't fake. Occasionally, students would bring the companion eggs they obtained from dimensional zones to him for sale. Although the price he offered wasn't high, the advantage was that he could take the money directly without going through the trouble of selling it himself. However, the ones sold to Liu were common companion eggs. They weren't anything good. How is it? Did you see that? The students recognize me. The price is fair and I don't cheat anyone. The price I gave you isn't low. Liu took another companion egg and flaunted it to Zhou. Zhou ignored him and continued gaming. By the side, Huangji was also using his laptop to do something. His fingers flew across the keyboard, and he had no time to chat with Zhou. Seeing Zhou ignore him, Liu couldn't help but mutter, "You can't do business like this. You definitely won't be able to sell it." As he said that, another person walked in. When Liu saw the person, his eyes lit up. "Gujian, you got another companion egg?" Liu hurriedly welcomed him warmly. Zhou looked up when he heard Gu Dian's name. Indeed, he saw the devil-like man walk in. How much can these companion eggs be exchanged for? Gu Jian threw a bag in front of Liu. Liu hurriedly opened the bag and was overjoyed when he saw more than 10 companion eggs inside. As he appraised them, he said, "This should be a golden warrior companion egg." Others would only pay 5,000 at most. On account of us being old friends, I'll give you 5,500. Zhou used his phone to look at the companion eggs and couldn't help but be surprised. Liu was truly capable. He was able to tell the species of the companion eggs quite well. However, the price he offered was truly a scam. It was basically less than a third of the market price. For a companion egg like the Golden Warrior, although it was only at the ordinary legendary stage, it was naturally resistant to beatings. It was an excellent meat shield pet and sold for a rather high price on the market. However, the price that you offered was much lower than the average legendary companion egg's purchase price. It couldn't be any more unscrupulous. Gu Jian, do you want to sell these companion eggs? Zhou asked Gu Jian. Although Gu Jian was only there to make up the numbers, he was still a member of the Xianwen Club in name. Zhou didn't wish for him to be scammed under his nose. A person like Gu Jian spent all his time in dimensional zones without even having a friend. He definitely didn't know the market price and had probably been scammed by Li Yu in the past. Yes, Gu Jian answered. I want to sell companion eggs anyway. If you trust me, I'll help you sell them, Zhou said. All right. Gu Jian grabbed his bag and placed it in front of Zhou before turning to leave without a word. Li Yu was somewhat infuriated as he said to Zhou with a cold expression, Zhou, that's not right of you. Don't you know the rules of doing business? I don't know anything about business, but Gu Jian is a member of our club. It's not against the rules for me to help someone on my side sell, right? Zhou said. All right, let's see how I can sell them here. Li Yu wasn't in a hurry. The companion eggs he collected were to be sold at the Royal Pet Store. It was basically impossible to sell them here. Chapter 237. Zhou ignored Li Yu and wrote the names and prices on Gu Dian's companion eggs. Then, he sat behind the stall and continued gaming. Li Yu glanced at Zhou's price, but one of the companion eggs was especially expensive. You dare offer 100,000 for a gatekeeper lion companion egg? Even if it's a retail price, it's ridiculously high. It would be a miracle if you can sell it, Li Yu thought. As he was thinking, another person came to the trading market. This time, it was a young student. He was extremely handsome and looked like a movie star. When Li Yu saw this person, his eyes lit up as he went forward. Brother Luo Xian, are you here to buy companion eggs? I've recently gotten quite a bit of good stuff here. Luo Xian had originally come to Li Yu's stall to look at the companion eggs, but when he saw Zhou setting up a stall beside him, he couldn't help but take a few glances at his stall. This immediately piqued his interest. I want all 4 companion eggs, Luo Xian said as he pointed at the 4 companion eggs Zhou had placed out. Brother Luo, don't just look at the names. What are the chances of obtaining companion eggs like broken-winged angel and frostbear here? Although Li Yu didn't say that Zhou's companion eggs were fake, anyone could tell what he was implying. Luo Xian smiled and said, a person like Zhou wouldn't go so far as to fake something like this. Even if it's not fake, the price is too expensive. If you really want it, wait a few more days. I'll get the company to transfer it over. The frostbear is at most 100,000. Zhou had previously ruined his plans, so Li Yu didn't want to make things easy for him. Luo Xian smiled at Zhou and said, Zhou, can your companion eggs be cheaper? No, you get what you pay for. You could buy 100,000. That's the price here, Zhou said without looking up. Brother Luo, look at his attitude. He's clearly trying to scam you, Li Yu said. Luo Xian didn't mind as he transferred the money to Zhou. All right, I'll take all 4. Help me wrap them up. Sorry, I forgot to bring a bag. Take it yourself. After Zhou received the transfer, he realized that he didn't even have a plastic bag. Li Yu's face turned green as he watched from the side. He thought to himself, this Luo Xian is really a fool with a lot of money. That punk Zhou really got lucky. Luo Xian didn't mind. He opened his backpack and stuffed the 4 companion eggs inside. Then, he looked at the companion egg on Zhou's stall and pointed at the gatekeeper lion companion egg in surprise. Why is this gatekeeper lion companion egg so expensive? The market price should be about 20,000, right? This is a mutated gatekeeper lion egg, not an ordinary gatekeeper lion, Zhou said. A mutated gatekeeper lion? Liu was slightly taken aback as he carefully looked at the companion egg, but he didn't see anything wrong with it. It was identical to an ordinary gatekeeper lion egg. He couldn't help but sneer inwardly. It's true that your talent is good and your level is high. I admit that I'm inferior to you, but when it comes to the appraisal of companion eggs, it's my specialty. I didn't spend the past 3 years learning it for nothing. Even I can't tell that it's a mutated gatekeeper lion egg. This is the first time I've heard of a mutated gatekeeper lion. What's the difference between it and an ordinary gatekeeper lion? Luo Xian's interest was piqued. Zhou Wen said, "Mutated gatekeeper lions are rather rare. It's normal that you haven't heard of them. They have higher stats than ordinary gatekeeper lions. In terms of skills, they have an additional lion roar. It's a relatively rare sonic attack skill. However, this skill is worth more than 100,000. To think there's such a thing, I'll buy it." Luo Xian was extremely wealthy as he waved his hand in a bid to transfer the money. "Brother Luo, I've heard of mutated gatekeeper lions, but they are produced too rarely. None of us have seen them before. However, I heard that not every mutated gatekeeper lion has the lion roar skill. There's a certain probability. Without the lion roar skill, there's no way to tell the difference between a mutated gatekeeper lion and an ordinary one. No one knows if it's really mutated." Liu was speaking the truth, but he also suspected that Zhou Wen was selling an ordinary gatekeeper lion egg as a mutated gatekeeper lion egg. Luo Xian looked at Zhou Wen, who said indifferently, "I can only guarantee that this is a mutated gatekeeper lion egg. I can't guarantee anything else." Liu was delighted when he heard Zhou Wen say that. "Only a ghost would buy it if you say that. I'll buy it." However, Luo Xian waved his hand, stunning Liu and his men. Their mouths were agape for a long time. He knew that Luo Xian was rich, but he never expected him to be this rich. He felt depressed inwardly. If I had known that Luo Xian was such a fool, I would have asked for a higher price in the past. Seeing that Luo Xian wasn't interested in the other companion eggs on Zhou Wen's stall, Liu hurriedly took out the few companion eggs he had. Although they weren't comparable to Zhou Wen's frost bear, they were rare items that could be found in a few locations on campus. "Brother Luo, this is a rare white, feathered red-tailed crane. Its skills are extremely rare, and its production numbers are also very low. I was lucky enough to purchase one, and when I bought it, I spent 98,000. I'll sell it to you for 110,000. After witnessing Luo Xian's wealth, Liu automatically raised the price to another level. "Yes, not bad." Luo Xian nodded slightly. "Brother, it's good that you like it. Are you paying by card or bank transfer?" Liu was secretly delighted. "I only brought this much money today. I've spent it all. Next time," Luo Xian said with a smile. Liu was somewhat dumbfounded as he felt depressed. King pay by card, not from your wallet. "What do you mean you only brought this much money today?" Luo Xian ignored Liu and took out the mutated gatekeeper lion egg. Then, he injected his primordial energy and hatched it. When Liu saw Luo Xian do so, he couldn't help but nod inwardly. From the looks of it, Luo Xian isn't really a fool. He directly hatched the gatekeeper lion here. After realizing that he had been cheated, he will definitely settle scores with Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen won't be able to deny it even if he wants to. Liu crossed his arms and waited for a good show to unfold. The gatekeeper lion egg had been brought by Gu Jian. Even Gu Jian himself hadn't said what mutated gatekeeper lion it was. Liu couldn't tell either. He refused to believe that Zhou Wen could really recognize it as a mutated gatekeeper lion. He felt that Zhou Wen was most likely trying to earn more money and was deliberately scamming him. Soon, Luo Xian hatched the gatekeeper lion. A majestic stone lion appeared in front of him. Liu took a look and saw that it looked identical to an ordinary gatekeeper lion. How could it be a mutated gatekeeper lion? Just as he was waiting to see Luo Xian and Zhou Wen fall out, he suddenly heard Luo Xian say, "It's indeed a mutated gatekeeper lion. Apart from speed, all its stats aren't lower than 17. The lion's roar skill is indeed good stuff. Zhou Wen, if there's such good stuff in the future, contact me directly." Liu felt like he was dreaming as he watched in shock as Luo Xian and Zhou went at each other as friends. Chapter 238. To be honest, my family runs a pet shop, but it naturally can't compare to a chain store like the Royal Pet Shop that can be found all over the Federation. My family shop is a small shop in Luoyang. In the future, if there are any companion eggs for sale, or if you want to buy any companion eggs, you can contact me directly. Luo Xian sent a message to Zhou Wen. I still have some rare legendary companion eggs. They're about the same rarity as the 4 from before. What's the purchase price? Zhou Wen replied to Luo Xian. The two of them chatted for a while, and after confirming the price, Zhou Wen packed up his stall and prepared to leave. Luo Xian's price was rather fair. Zhou Wen didn't wish to waste time here, so he planned on selling Gu Jian and his companion eggs to Luo Xian. Zhou Wen. Just as Zhou Wen was about to pack his things and leave, Liu called out to him. Zhou Wen turned to look at Liu. Liu hesitated for a moment before saying, "How did you tell that it was a mutated gatekeeper lion? Is it difficult?" Then, he bade farewell to Huang Ji and left the trading market with half a bag of companion eggs. Liu was stunned for a while before he came back to his senses. He could not help but smile bitterly and say, "If this isn't difficult, then what's the point of studying for the past 3 years?" Zhou Wen arrived at the agreed location with Luo Xian and handed Gu Jian and his companion egg to Luo Xian. Luo Xian readily transferred the money to Zhou Wen according to the agreed price. Excluding Gu Dian's portion, Zhou Wen had received more than 2 million. This was the first time he had received so much money. He felt like a nouveau riche. "Are you interested in becoming an appraiser in my pet shop after graduation? I can give you working shares." Luo Xian said. "I'm not interested in appraisal." Zhou Wen thought for a moment before asking, "Do you have any legendary weapon companion beasts? It has to be extremely destructive. It would be best if the destructive power reaches the epic stage." If someone else asked me that, I would definitely say no, and I would even despise them in my heart. But since you asked, I will tell you that there is, but it is very expensive, Luo Xian said. "How expensive?" Zhou Wen was in desperate need of a weapon that could break the white cocoon. The banana fan's power was wind. If it were to evolve to its limits, a fan could blow a mountain into the heavens with a swing of the fan. However, its power wasn't concentrated enough, and its destructive power wasn't strong enough. It couldn't compare to a single target skill. If you wanted to break something, heavy weapons were more practical. At the very least, you would need weapons like swords. Luo Xian pondered and said, "I wonder if you have heard of a companion beast called Overlord Snake? It's a companion beast with immense strength." Among legendary pets, companion beast, has with companionable with Overlord beast called Overlord Snake. With its strength, it has with legendary with Overlord Snake. To say with legendary beast. Pet with the legendary with. T with. He with dragon moves right with moo over the dragon with. Dragons Yan's yin master. It's the same with Overlord Snakes. Typical Overlord Snakes aren't strong enough, but if it's a mutated Overlord Snake, then among its talent skills, there might be a skill called Ever Victorious. With this skill, the Overlord Spear can pierce through most matter. Even ordinary epic creatures will find it difficult to withstand its sharpness. The only pity is that mutated Overlord Snakes are very rare. Mutated Overlord Snakes with Ever Victorious are even rarer. Our family specially found people to grind in Snake Cavern for half a year before obtaining an Overlord Snake with Ever Victorious. And that was under extremely good luck. Now, that mutated Overlord Snake is considered one of our store's cornerstone companion beasts. It wasn't for sale. The only pity is that mutated Overlord Snakes are very rare. Mutated Overlord Snakes with the Ever Victorious skill are even rarer. Our family specially found someone to grind in Snake Cavern for half a year before obtaining an Overlord Snake with the Ever Victorious skill. This was under extremely good luck. Now, That mutated overlord snake is considered one of our store's cornerstone companion beasts. It wasn't originally for sale. But if you want it, I can sell it to you, but the price will be very expensive. How much? Zhou asked. 10 million, Luo Xian said. It's indeed very expensive. I can't afford it. Zhou shook his head. There's nothing we can do about it. The overlord snake's level isn't considered high, but the ever-victorious skill is very rare. Furthermore, we found someone to hatch it. If you want it, you will need to sacrifice his cultivation and damage his body to forcefully transfer the overlord snake. This will also require a huge sum of money, Luo Xian said. Zhou nodded. Everyone wanted good things. Although their levels were about the same, it was understandable that they were expensive. Zhou couldn't afford an overlord snake, but Luo Xian's words reminded him that he couldn't afford it. However, he could try grinding in Snake Cavern himself. Snake Cavern was near Old Dragon Cave. Zhou had heard Zhongzia mention it in the past, but he didn't pay much attention to it back then. Furthermore, Zhongzia didn't know that the mutated overlord snake had ever victorious. After separating from Luo Xian, Zhou transferred Gu Dian's money to him. Previously, when Gu Jian entered the Xianwen Club, Zhou had paid him and added him as a friend. After Gu Jian received the money, he only replied, "Got it." Zhou contacted Huang Ji again and confirmed some matters regarding the game. Finally, he confirmed that he would invest 5 million. However, he had to invest it in 2 installments. The initial investment was 500,000, and after Huang Ji made a prototype, he would invest the remaining 1 million. After returning to his dorm, Zhou took out his mysterious phone and went to Snake Cavern. It was filled with python-like snakes. The legendary Overlord snake had invincible strength and was considered a top-notch legendary creature. Furthermore, they lived in groups, and there were many of them. Typical legendary students didn't dare enter Snake Cavern. Zhou naturally didn't have any qualms about it. He summoned his group of companion beasts and wreaked havoc in Snake Cavern. Soon, Zhou understood why the Overlord snake was so expensive. He had killed nearly 100 Overlord snakes, but he hadn't even seen an ordinary Overlord snake egg, much less a mutated Overlord snake egg. In the next few days, apart from going to Wang Mingyuan's place to learn, Zhou spent the rest of his time grinding Overlord snakes. However, the results were very limited. In a few days, he had only obtained an ordinary Overlord snake egg. He had seen a mutated Overlord snake, but nothing dropped. It's no wonder Luo Xian said that they were extremely lucky to have a mutated Overlord snake egg drop in half a year. When Zhou thought of luck, he thought of Wang Lu. With Wang Lu's luck, if he took her to Snake Cavern, she might be able to drop a mutated Overlord snake egg. However, Zhou didn't plan on begging others, so he could only continue grinding. He grinded Snake Cavern again and again until Zhou felt like vomiting when he saw the snakes. Ding! Zhou killed another mutated Overlord snake when he suddenly heard a crisp sound. A black snake egg dropped and landed on the ground. Mutated Overlord snake egg. Zhou was delighted as he hurriedly got the blood-colored avatar to pick it up. Then, he prayed inwardly. There must be an ever-victorious skill. If I continue grinding, I'll turn into a snake maniac. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.